All right, welcome everyone. I am going to call this meeting of the Town of Carlisle Planning Board to order on Monday, July 13th, 2026, 7 p.m. Hybrid meeting in the Clark room and remote. We will kick off our agenda today with our 7 p.m. public hearing for the Newhouse Wildlife Rescue. Public hearing for site plan review under Master Law, Chapter 48, Section 3. And Carlisle zoning bylaw, section 7.6, for change in use from residential to wildlife rescue and educational center at 1090 North Road, parcel 3620-0. And who we have from the applicant today?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Attorney Melissa Robbins from Farrell and Robbins. I'm here tonight representing Newhouse Wildlife Rescue. I also sit on the board. Also with me tonight is Casey Ferrer. Geez, Louise. He is a civil engineer from Howard Stein Hudson, and he also sits on the board. And I think most of you know Jane Newhouse. She's also with me this evening. And we also have Zoe McKinney, correct? McKinney. I knew I was going to say it wrong. She's a current top student in veterinary medicine and a current intern at Newhouse Wildlife Center. So we're just going to talk about that a little bit more a little bit later. We're here tonight for a site plan review. We're excited to be here. We're excited to be in Carlisle. We will go through the specific items for our site plan review, but first, I know this board has gone through Dover Amendment before. I know you've dealt with daycares. I know you've dealt with schools, but this is probably the first time you've dealt with a wildlife animal education center. So first, if you'll allow, I'd just like to give you a little background about what we do and what our day-to-day is like. And I can't do that without embarrassing Jane a little bit. So Jane is the founder, obviously, of Newhouse Wildlife Rescue. Jane started Newhouse a little over 8 years ago in her home in Chelmsford, Mass. It's grown and grown and grown, and it's grown so much that Jane shouldn't be operating it out of her house in Chelmsford anymore, and we need a new home. In looking for homes, we looked at communities close to Chelmsford that had really an agricultural feel, and Carlisle seemed like the right fit. We found a piece of property. We found some excellent sellers that have been very patient with us. We've made an offer on this house that has been accepted, and we're very excited to move forward. So Jane started with saving animals, and that's where her passion began. But then she realized more and more that saving the baby squirrel and getting it into the backyard out healthy and new wasn't just where her passion was. Her passion was really educating the public. Educating the public how they can better live with animals, educating the public about how they can positively impact animals, and educating the public about what they're doing wrong to these animals. So if you see an orphaned or injured baby, oftentimes you'll see now on Facebook, what's the first thing that pops up? Newhouse Wildlife Rescue. What happens when that pops up? Well, we usually get a phone call right away, or a Facebook message, or an email. Does every single critter that gets a call come to the Chelmsford facility? Absolutely not. If you've looked at some of the logs that we've submitted or our day-to-day operations, we gave the board a couple from June. Most of what happens, the people call and they say, oh my gosh, a baby bird, it's on the ground. What do we do? There's a bunch of baby bunnies, they're under grass. My dog knocked them over, but they seem fine. What do I do? And generally what happens is they give you education over the phone. Tell you exactly how to deal with the animals. Sometimes they'll send out a video, sometimes they'll send out a pamphlet and really educate you on how you deal with the animals and keep them in their home. If that doesn't happen and that animal needs care, so a baby is actually orphaned and in danger, or there is actually an injured animal, most of what happens next is Jane's going to go out there to the site. Those of you that got to go to Jane's site, you see that we have a van, a Newhouse Wildlife Rescue van. So the van will go out to the site and try to rescue the baby animal. If Jane's not available, or if you have an active animal control officer, sometimes we'll call the animal control officer to see if they can help us as well. If Jane's at capacity, which we have been quite a bit this year, or if it's a little bit out of our area, we will also call other area rescues to see if they can help. But most of the time, it's education that solves the issue. On occasion, people will just show up to the door with a baby in a box. We ask that you don't do that. Please call us first. We might say that the baby needs to come to us, but oftentimes they don't. More often than not, they don't. And we've recently had somebody that came with a baby raccoon, and the baby raccoon was pretty content in his box because it was full of Pringles, something we don't suggest. And something, if you had called Jane beforehand, she would have told you not to do that. So the first thing that we tell you is to please contact us. Don't show up at the house. On top of dealing with the day-to-day animal calls and the education, Jane also now oversees students. I think you got information about the 3 students that we have right now, the interns at the center. Zoe is one of those students. She's currently at Tufts University, Cummings School for Veterinary Medicine. She's doing her internship right now with Jane, and she can give you some insight about that, so you don't have to listen to me talk about it. So if you want to ask her some questions later, she's here. In addition to the on-site education, I'm sure you're all very familiar with our Facebook page. Those who aren't, you should definitely join. Right now, I think as of today, when I peeked, we have 471,000 active members in our Facebook page, and they are very engaged, which is good news for Jane because it's a huge resource for giving education to the public. If you look through her last 5 or 6 posts, you can see that really we're focused on pesticides, rodenticides, and what that is doing to the animals, what that's doing to the animal population, what the ramifications are when you use it, and what happens when an animal ends up in our care as it relates to that. But you can also see our happy stories, not related to pesticides. Sometimes we've had stories related to that too, where you get to see the care of an animal from beginning to end to release day. And that's our goal. Release day is our goal. We love the baby buddies. We love the baby beavers. We love having the animals in our care. But really, our goal is to get these animals back out into the wild. I think there's a typical misconception about animal rescues that if you have sick animals in your care, that all of a sudden there's an abundance of sick animals in your neighborhood, and that they're being released sick. That is absolutely not the case. Sick animals are generally kept indoors in incubators. When they don't need to be in the incubators, they're in cages, they're getting care from some of our care team that's here today indoors. And it's not until an animal is getting well enough that we're getting them back out into their environment that they go into the outdoor enclosures that are outside. So you don't worry about the sick animals escaping. And as for the birds, when they come in, if they're sick, they're always quarantined, they're always tested. So if a bird, for example, had avian flu, they'd be never going back out into the animal world. So what I can say safely to you is that animals that come into our care come out better than they would have in the wild. Even baby raccoons that otherwise aren't sick but might be orphaned, they are also vaccinated for rabies, something they wouldn't get out to the wild, which is a huge benefit to the community. And again, just a benefit to the overall people and animal population. People are often concerned too about animals being released, just regular animals being released into the yard. But these animals are native to Carlisle woods. These are not zoo animals. These are not large animals. These are your day-to-day animals that you see. Raccoons, squirrels, beavers, foxes. These are not exotic animals. The general rule is that you release these animals where you found them or within a 5-mile perimeter or within a 5-mile perimeter of the rescue itself. That's because they're native to your backyard. So might you release a squirrel at the Carlisle State Park? Absolutely. That's a lovely home for a squirrel. But what we do is make sure that there's safe and adequate areas for release of these animals that have come out of our care. And also that we're very concerned about overpopulation, so we don't always release in the same location. Which is one of the reasons, by the way, that Carlisle was such a lovely community for us to choose. Carlisle is very agricultural centered, and we believe this is a perfect home for our education and for the care of animals. We think we're an asset to the community. We had a question about what resources we have to depend on for the town. The answer is none. We are a self-funded nonprofit organization. So we don't take people's dollars for our day-to-day operation. I think that I've said enough about New House and our day-to-day operations. We can get into some of the site information. The site is located at 1090 North Road. The site is approximately 13.1 acres. Can you show that like the rendering plan? Thank you. The site right now contains a beautiful, really beautiful single-family home, a garage, and a lovely pool. The house is located way back from the road. I think that it's indicated that it's about 600 feet set back onto the site, a very long driveway. Most of our uses, I pointed out, happen inside of the structure, but some of the uses will happen in those outdoor enclosures, and I'll let Casey talk about what happens in those outdoor enclosures in a couple minutes. The residential structure is actually going to remain basically intact. The residential layout of homes actually is a wonderful use for what we do there on our site. So we really don't have to make many changes to the layout. I think when Jane started, she operated out of her bathroom, moved into her bathroom and a garage, bathroom, garage, kitchen, which is shared residentially. Really, the residential layout of a home lends nicely to rehabilitation for a new house. I also want to point out to remember that our current use is in a residential neighborhood in Chelmsford. And so we reached out to some of our abutters. We had one of our closest abutters across the street write the letter for a board so you could see if she had any issues or concerns. She has been a resident in the house since 1996. She has known Jane has been operating that rescue since the day she started. Jane, I think in her letter, she actually says that Jane actually went over and knocked on the door, told her intentions. In the letter, just a couple of highlights that I want to point out, that New House has been no impact whatsoever. The abutter called her uneventful. That's your use, Jane, not you personally. And a positive addition to the community. No noise, escaped animals, or other disruptions. Casey's going to talk about it a little bit more too, but we did reach out to all the department heads of the town of Chelmsford and nobody had anything bad to say. All positive reviews. We really did try to find a new home in Chelmsford. We just couldn't find a site to fit our needs. So that's why we are moving out of Chelmsford into Carlisle. Just another misconception is that we don't invite public onto the site. We like to keep our animals very private and we don't want to handle them or they be pet or kept like animals because we actually are going to put them back out into the wild. We are not a petting zoo. We also try to discourage members of the public just showing up to New House at all, unless they have to or they're directed to. I think that most of you are probably familiar with the story that got Jane into the spotlight the first time. We asked the newspaper not to publish our address, but they did. And that's really when we started getting a lot more drop-offs to our house because then people knew exactly where we were located. We've since then changed our literature a little bit to try to train people to call us or email us or Facebook message us before they come to the house. In the future, I think people are concerned that we are going to have a lot more public out there, that will do public instruction, that would have classrooms. That's not in the cards right now. And this planning board knows that if we do want to do that, if we want to expand our uses and have a public classroom on site, we'll be back in this room just like we are today for our site plan review once again. So unfortunately for Nibby and Stanley, they are not taking house calls. They still have to go out for all of their educational uses. And I think that's probably where some of you are familiar with Nibby and Stanley. They are animal ambassadors. They are the exception, not the rule. Nibby and Stanley were unfit to go back out into the wild. We had to get a special disposition from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife in order for them to become educational animals. And that's why they stay in our care. That's why they can go out on sites and educate the public. I think I've said enough for now. What I'd like to do is just turn over to Casey, our project engineer, to talk about some of the site specifics.
All right. Hello, my name is Casey Ferrara. I should say I work with Howard Stein Hudson. I'm also a board member at New House.
Can you speak up, please?
Sure. I'm Casey Ferrara with Howard Stein Hudson. I am the acting civil engineer on the project, but I'm also a board member at Newhouse. As Melissa said, the existing property at 1090 North Road is about 13.1 acres, 13.13 to be exact. About 11.25 acres of that 13 is currently wood. We do not plan to change that. Our entire proposal is planned to be where there's existing open space on site. There is an approximately 600-foot driveway that leads from North Road south into the site. For about 475 feet of that 600 feet, there is woods on both sides of that driveway. So it's a very secluded driveway as you drive in. What you see on the screen here in the lighter green, that's at that 475-foot mark on the west side of the property, or the west side of the driveway. It opens up into a nice green maintained lawn, and that's existing. That area, it sits approximately 12 feet below the driveway as you move closer to the house. So it's really tiered down from the house. And that tiered area of the pool, the open lawn space, it's approximately 0.8 acres total. And within that 0.8 acres of this 13-acre site is where the majority of our outdoor modification is proposed. And when I say modification, we are not doing a bunch of regrading. We are not ripping up soil. Really, all we're doing is we're going to install these outdoor rehabilitation enclosures. And those are made with just wood and fencing. The fencing is to grade to keep the animals from escaping. We're going to add fences around each of them to kind of have a two-tiered safety net around each enclosure. But then also we just plan on putting a walkway that'll lead from the existing pool area down into where the enclosures are. So what you see on this plan is approximately 11 enclosures and 1 utility shed for installation. These enclosures, all but one, range between about 100 square feet to 394 square feet. So 10 of them fall within this 100-foot to just under 400-foot range, square foot range. Pretty small. And each of them are tailored to the animals that we plan on putting them in. For example, the fox enclosures have 1/3 of them are covered with a roof, so that they can get the shade in the nighttime that they desire. But then they also have the open so that it, when it rains, they feel the rain. They're not just completely secluded under the roof. And then the last enclosure is a little bit larger. It's going to be an aviary enclosure. So this needs to be larger so that when the birds are learning to fly and get ready to get in the wild, they actually have room to learn how to fly. This enclosure is about 30 foot in diameter and just about 700 square feet. All of the enclosures combined are currently planned to be about 2,500 square feet. And then lastly, the utility shed. We don't have a shed that we plan on putting in right now, but what we've shown is about a 10 by 20 shed. And really the intention of that shed is just because these enclosures are now going to be set so far away from the house compared to our current location that we just want to have an area that we can store stuff that we'll need for maintenance of the enclosures or maybe food or whatever we might have to put out there. So we're not lugging stuff back and forth from the house, down the set of stairs, around the pool area and into the enclosures. So it's really just storage for what we might need out there, and we don't have any large plans for it this time. Lastly, the pool area out here, we do plan on keeping it. At some point, we plan on a conversion from the pool, the residential pool, to an enclosure for our semi-aquatic animals like our beavers, otters, whatever might need a partial water surface. This hasn't been. Whatever we end up doing in this area will remain within the footprint of the pool and within the footprint of the existing patio. So what we've shown on this plan is we're going to add a fence to seclude it off as its own separate enclosure. And as we determine what we can feasibly do with that down the road, we will within the exact same footprint that it currently exists. As I mentioned, there is kind of a tiered scenario here with the house sitting up top. And then we have a patio outside the house that is going to remain, and then stairs down to all those enclosures. All of that is proposed to remain the same. We don't plan on any earthwork to change any of that. We like the way it sits now and we want to maintain it. We have, within the existing driveway, there's actually a lot of space. In fact, what we've shown on the plan is the ability to park 12 vehicles, 6 of which would be within the existing 6-car garage that sits in the corner. And then we have right in front of where the existing garage is, that is underneath the house. It's already somewhat flat, so this seems like the optimal location to locate an 88 parking space. As required, wherever we have parking, we need to provide an accessible parking space. So our plan for right in front of the house is to have that 88 parking space that's less than 2% in all directions. And then utilizing the remaining of the pavement that's already there to the extent possible, we can seek out 5 additional 9 by 20 parking spaces so that they meet the Colorado zoning bylaw. In laying this out, we're actually able to reduce some of the pavement that's on the driveway. And then additionally, we believe a good use case for this ADA space would be to use some kind of permeable block, as we're already going to be modifying the area to get it to that ADA accessibility standards. There's different blocks that you can use that are permeable, reduce our impervious impact, and then also you can color them the blue for the handicap accessible and what have you. So our plan here is to use that whole space that we are modifying to get those ADA spaces in as permeable blocks. Around the openings where you see the grass open up, our goal really is to seclude anything in these outdoor enclosures. We don't want anything visible from the road. Even as you drive up the driveway, we really don't want the enclosures visible. So what we've added along that open space in the driveway is a fence line from that, so the 475-foot mark, all the way up to where Woods takes back over, or there's some plantings along the side of the driveway. And really all that is just to close it off so that if we do have a drop off, someone that's coming in, we don't want them looking over and seeing any of the enclosures. We really just don't want to entice anybody to be there any longer than we have to. For external changes, I believe that wraps it up. The only other item I want to mention for external changes is that the net impact of this, just because the box enclosures have, a third of them are roofs and there's 2 of them, we did want to offset any impact from impervious surfaces, any additional impervious surfaces. So with the inclusion of those permeable blocks in the ADA spaces, and then also getting rid of some pavement around the extra areas of the driveway that just didn't make sense to keep anymore, we result in a net decrease in impervious surface by about 354 square feet. Additionally, that walkway that I discussed earlier, we don't have a final material that we want to make it out of yet, but it will be permeable in nature. We are not proposing a concrete walkway that's going to go down around and extend. It'll probably be some kind of crushed gravel or stone or something. It's really just to identify a walking path for new house employees to use and volunteers, and not just be trampling over grass and muddiness and whatnot. The impacts to the neighborhood of traffic. I'm going to talk about it a little bit and maybe clear up some misconceptions. So the Institute of Transportation Engineers, also known as ITE, is what typically dictates what we assume for an average daily trip volume for a proposed development. Unfortunately, ITE does not have a use case for a wildlife rehabilitation plan. It does not perform or operate the same as a veterinary clinic. It does not perform or operate the same as an emergency animal hospital. So what we have been, the way we have approached it, and Howard 10 Hudson has a large Department of Transportation Engineers. So in my consultation with them, they have recommended analyzing our current operation and then applying a factor of potential growth. So what we have done is we have assumed a certain number of employees per day. And then with each trip considered, or each vehicle that comes and goes is considered 2 trips. So in our application packet, we have, we stated approximately 30 trips would be our maximum average daily usage. That's only 15 vehicles. It doesn't mean we're gonna have 30 people coming and going. That's not the plan. We may have 4 employees, we may have Jane going back and forth, the van might go out. But we don't plan on having 15 people coming and going every day. What we've done is applied how we operate now and then assumed that if we operate at 20 vehicles a day now, maybe we'll get to 30 vehicles or 30 trips per day in the future. But that's a lot. And we don't think we're going to hit that. But what we wanted to do was give you this maximum rather than giving you right now. You know, last Saturday we operated at 14 vehicle trips, seven coming and going. Because peak baby season can put a lot in one day or a little in one day. It's not in every day is the same trip value. So we really put our heads together to determine in peak baby season, what is going to be a worst case scenario. And that's what we've given you with our 30 vehicle trips. Now, peak baby season is going to be when we have our highest traffic volumes, which would be that 30 maximum that we provided. Peak baby season ranges from March to August, give or take. So through the winter, August through March, everything drops. The number of employees going to and from the clinic drops. Obviously, drop-offs or us going out to get animals drops. So we may see 10 on a day, 10 trips, not 10 vehicles on a day when it's off season. So we're really talking about March to August. As Melissa mentioned, one of the things I wanted to do was to contact our current town departments that deal with us on a day-to-day. Well, they don't deal with us on day-to-day, it's not eventful, but may oversee us on a day-to-day basis. And being in the residential neighborhood that she's in now, which all these house lots are approximately half an acre or less compared to the 13 acres or the 10 acres, minimum 2 acres that we see in the North Road neighborhood. I wanted to see if anybody has had any complaints or any questions regarding traffic since she opened in 2018. So I just this morning, I got off the phone with Commander Jason Ford from the Chelmsford Police Department. He reiterated to me that since 2018, there's been 1 log for this site, and it was an animal control officer doing a routine inspection. There has never been a call about traffic. There has never been a call about an animal that got loose. Nothing is in their logs from Newhouse operating at their current facility. Friday, I talked with the police chief, Barry Hannigan, at Chelmsford Police Department, and his commentary was much of the same. He's actually had a chance to speak with Jane in person, and he has said that there has been no issues that the Chelmsford Police Department is aware of. Even animal control has not had issues with Newhouse operating in a facility. Beyond Chelmsford Police Department, we've also contacted the Chelmsford Board of Health and the Chelmsford Building Department. So the Chelmsford Building Department would likely get complaints that were use related rather than Chelmsford Police Department, where the police department would get nuisance complaints or traffic complaints. Building Department had no complaints on record from us. Board of Health, I asked Board of Health if they've had anything, any concerns, any health hazards, nothing. So all of the boards and departments in the town of Chelmsford currently have nothing on record for us being eventful in the town. And we really want to keep it that way. But in a move to Carlisle, we don't want to be a gun port. All we want to be is a sanctuary, where we can nurse injured wildlife, orphan wildlife, educate the public to the extent possible that we can. Landscaping and lighting on site. The reason I left these for last is because we're not proposing any changes to what's existing out there. Currently, there is a light above the garages at the house. If it's not currently on a motion, thank you. If it's not currently on a motion sensor, we will likely put it on a motion sensor. We don't want it on a timer. And it's more or less for security purposes, and then driving in, getting to ADA space, you want the ADA space to be lit up. Right, it's just one of the requirements. Landscaping, as I mentioned, we're not doing earthwork, so we're not planning on removing any trees. We're not planning on, we want to keep everything. We think the lot is perfect as is. We want to keep it that way. And then I think the last thing I want to touch on for the site is trash. Currently, our current plan is to contract private trash pickup, and this will be for anything that is produced by the plant. I'd like to say we're going to have it once a week, but we're really going to have to feel out how that goes. We may have to increase it to twice a week. In the winter, we may be able to decrease it to once every other week. But we may keep it once a week just for consistency. We're not sure, but we want Carlisle to know that it'll be private trash pickup, and they'll be coming in, they're licensed haulers, and everything that they pick up, they'll be certified to pick up. I think I can move on to Arctic.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to bring up, and it is in the narrative of the application as well. One of the board members had a question about waste. And I know that there's a lot of horses in Carlisle, so you're probably used to a lot of horse waste and a lot of waste. Our animals do not make a lot of waste. We have very small animals, like caged animals, any of you that have ever had a pet bunny, a pet gerbil, or something of the like, you know that it's just cleaning out the cages, using sawdust or the other material that's natural. So that'll be removed from the site either through trash pickup, and some will be composted, but certainly not to a degree, even a single. So we have no issues with trash pickup now. We have no issues with odor. We have no issues whatsoever with waste control, and we will continue to do so. The only twist is that now we will have private trash pickup instead of public trash. So that would be the only twist here. And just for lighting, I think it's important to note that we do show some like little light on the ground walkway, like the solar lights that you just plug in the ground. But other than that, we want the dark sky. We need the dark sky. We want our animals to get back to their normal rhythms of life. So it's important that we have no lighting in the back. We will have the emergency lighting if someone drives in our driveway in the front, but to the rear, we really want to keep it a natural atmosphere. So if you're wondering why we don't have lights back there, that's why. We don't even really want floodlights or emergency lights back there because if, you know, any of you that have it, you have a pesky moth, a big bird, or just something go on with those lights, they can go on and off all night sometimes. So right now we're proposing 0. It's important to the animal. And so I'll come back to you.
Okay. And then move to the other picture. So currently, existing house, call it the northern face of the house that abuts the driveway, is too large. It's a 2-door garage right now. This is the only exterior modification that we plan on making on the house, is that because that is up against that flat area, that can be converted to ADA accessible. This makes the most sense for us to build an entry. The other entry that goes around the house towards the left side from what you're looking at now has a couple steps into the foyer of the house. And then if you were to go down to the right, that goes downstairs and into the patio area. So coming in at this level garage makes the most sense for us. So our only conversion for the exterior house is taking out the two garage doors, adding this door that you see on the left, and then just really an architectural element to replace the garage door on the right. We wanted this covered overhang, just as, you know, when it's raining, want to get in, it's just a covered overhang, and that's all. The interior of the house is somewhat similar. I'd say the majority of the house, we don't plan on touching, and it's, right now, it's a lot of house, and we want to keep as much of it as we can, because we can do conversions over time. What we're showing on these plans here is really what we need right now just to get going. And that is that garage turnover, and it's gonna go from the garage space to your entryway with drop-off area, and then also a quarantine area up there for the drop-offs. We're gonna convert, currently this garage is not connected to what is the utility room that you see at the middle of the house here. What we're calling the triage room, that's currently the utility room. And the utility room makes a perfect triage room because it's plumbed, it has a sink. It's the perfect place for us. So we're just gonna make a stairway connection between that garage and the future triage room. And then outfitting the triage room with some cages, a table in the middle, and that's really the extent of changes on this floor. Just scroll to the next room. And then the only change that we have upstairs right now is reorienting a staircase that currently goes up and down the page. What we want just to modify is that it would go into the kitchen rather than adjacent to the kitchen area. And then the remainder of the house stays the same. As Melissa previously said, the layout of a residential home is actually great. It has secluded rooms so you can separate. You can have a quarantine room. You can have a quarantine for foxes. You can have a quarantine for birds. You can have we really want the separated out rooms. So that's not what we're planning on changing. But we don't know right now exactly what this layout turns out to be. But for, let's call them structural changes, but they're really not even structural because it's a deck house. That's all we're proposing at this time.
And I think just one other point, the board or staff had asked a question about accessory residential uses, what's going to happen to the rest of the house. Right now, we're proposing to keep a manager on site. The manager on site right now in Chelmsford is Jane. So that helps a lot of things. I mean, for your day-to-day care, animal care, there's always somebody there. Much like a self-storage facility, there's always somebody to worry about security. There's always somebody in the house. So some of the residential portion of the house will stay the same. Those of you that got to tour the Chelmsford facility, you could see how easily we can convert a living room, a garage, and a kitchen into an animal rescue. Those of you who are not very familiar with animal rescue, most of these are done out of people's houses through converted garages and areas. So this is actually quite typical. You don't know they're around you because they don't want to be known. They want their animals to go back out there. But these are the typical locations, our houses. So I think that is all the information that we have up front. We're happy to answer any questions the board or staff may have or any other questions or concerns.
All right, thank you very much. Just to sort of lay the groundwork here, I think what we're going to do is open it up to the board for questions and comments. And then we will open it up to members of the public for questions and comments. We do have an hour allotted for this, so we're supposed to end at 8. If we have to go over, we will, but I think what we want to try to do is be as succinct as possible. So with that, I will open it up to the board for questions and comments. Do we have Eric? I mean, have Joe on. Joe, yeah. Eric, sorry. Eric. Sure. I've got a few, but I'll start with one. So thank you, really comprehensive overview. Really appreciate that and answering some of the questions already that we've heard and be on our minds. So the first question I just wanted to follow up on was, my impression coming into tonight was that release day occurs close to the original location. I was under the impression it was within a mile of the original location. I think I heard something different, 5 mile perimeter. And so I'd like to better understand the animals that you do rescue rehabilitate, what's the current circumference of where they're coming from? And are we potentially facing a situation where you're like, hey, we got 12 acres right there. And man, all these animals, great habitat for all these
Right.
animals.
Completely
Like, let's just start
legitimate
releasing
concern.
them
Right.
here. Could you just
Absolutely.
elaborate on that?
So
please?
legally by Mass Wildlife Standards, wildlife rehabbers are supposed to release animals from 5 miles of where they were found or 5 miles of their facility. So most of the time, we're trying to release them where they were found, right? Because generally where they were found is a place that has a good food source, good water source, things like that. Occasionally, I won't release in the same area where they were found. Usually it's only if they were poisoned really bad. Which sometimes we are dealing with that, where they're in an area where there's a lot of rat poison that's being used. If I have a hawk or a fox that was poisoned very badly, I try to release them within 5 miles of the facility. It's not something that I do frequently, and I don't try to release a lot of animals in the same area. I'm not trying to overpopulate any areas. So does that help at all?
I mean, it helps.
Right.
Are there situations where you could envision releasing just at the perimeters of your enclosures because you've got?
If I had some squirrels, but if neighbors had an issue with it, then it wouldn't happen. I mean, we have released squirrels in our neighborhood before, just because it's easier to open the door. But if neighbors had large concerns about that, this is one thing I like about Carlisle is it's a very wooded area. One thing that drove me to look at places here is because it's about sustainability and protecting wildlife. So I do love this area for the wildlife, but I'm also not trying to do anything that would upset neighbors. I don't know if squirrels would upset neighbors living in Carlisle.
Just to follow up on that, what's the count on an annual basis of animals that you release?
We took in 700 last year, and we have about a 70 to 80% success rate. A lot of them do go back to where they were found. So most of them are not, like I said, only if there's a situation that prevents anyone from going back. So like if I were to say how many that we released within 5 miles of Chelmsford, I would say there were some squirrels and there were 3 foxes that have been poisoned very bad. But the rest of them usually go back to it.
Other questions, please? Do you have other questions?
Well, I have more questions, but I'll let others. Or I'll keep going.
Keep going. Keep going. So on the schematic, on your site plan, where you talked about you're not planning to do earthworks or really change the elevations of where you're building the enclosures. One of the things we were just noting was the grade that is not insignificant there. And at minimum, if you're doing walkways, do you anticipate needing to do any earthworks, any kind of moving to level, anything in that area? It's pretty steep.
Right, so likely the good thing about these cages is that we can stilt them on one side to the other side being on the uphill, right? So if we want the cage to be flat and the grade is going down, we can sit one side up here and then stilt the other side. They're very manipulative in the way we can construct them, and they're all going to be personally constructed by the crew that you see here. So we're going to
Describe what the enclosures are a little bit better in terms of, are they, so it sounds like they have a floor. They're maybe like more like a rabbit hutch.
So they don't have a floor.
No.
What they have is buried wire. Really, the only reason we have to do that is to prevent dig outs. So we don't want the animal being able to dig and dig to get under the wire and then out. But the bottom, it all goes back. The bottom of the surface of the enclosure is natural ground. We want it to be natural ground. And then we really just have posts on the edges. for the ones that have a roof, will have, you know, whatever portion of it that's gonna be roofed will be framed that way with the roof. And then it's just completely enclosed in, is it 13, 14 gauge wire?
It's 19 gauge for most of the gauges and then 12 to 14 for the beavers that they can shoot.
So,
So it's enclosed on six sides.
All
I'll say
sides.
you have wire on the top of it.
that's right. So, the portion of the box is just. So all of them are constructed in this way, with wire at the bottom of the digging and then wire all the way around everywhere. So that we can make it. One of the things Jane and I have talked about is, and I mentioned it briefly, is a secondary enclosure around it, and it's really just a fence. And all that is it's a catch-all so that if you accidentally leave the latch open on the wired enclosure, they still can't get right out. So it's just a secondary method of catching anything before it can get out. Also, we found that the fencing between the enclosures prevents different animals that don't want to be next to each other. Like if you have a squirrel, foxes or raccoons, it just keeps the animals separate so that they don't feel intimidated by what's right next to them. And then the walkway, as far as the walkway goes, so the benefit of doing it with a substance such as crushed gravel or something is you can kind of do the same thing. You can make up what's lost with just more of the material on the other side. I don't envision the entirety of that walkway needing ADA accessibility with slopes on a running slope. I envision it meeting on a cross slope. We don't want to be walking when we're on this 10% grade, but what we can do to combat that is just raise the other side and you just end up with more material on the downslope side. So we're not going to dig out for that. We may just add material.
I'm gonna pick on my engineer, but I think maybe the tags were just misleading, because really what these are natural fenced in areas with walkways. These are not cement paths with enclosures with cement
We
foundation.
understand that.
Yeah.
It's, you're dropping 7 feet and 30 feet. That's
Right.
steep.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
Just want to make sure. that-
Yes, yeah.
You want- sorry. Maybe just one more question on my, on the nature of the enclosures. Can you describe the aerial enclosure and how that, it's not 6 sides for the front, but it's top and it's bottom, et cetera. How tall is it, et cetera?
You're talking about the aviaries?
Yes.
So it should be about 12, 14 feet high. That would be more slatted, like wooden slats. Birds, fortunately, if they can see out, they might hurt themselves. So more big open space, but like wooden slats with like a little bit of space in between them, but not the.
More like a stockade fence kind of.
It's a tall. So,
Stuff wire on the top as well, maybe, or is it?
Who's now is a medium for boxes.
that one, we actually don't have the large area right now, since you have the room for it, so it's room for us. But it'll basically just be constructed in a manner to prevent the birds from escaping, but also to give them the open space that they need in there. The way I envision it is you're gonna have a peak in the middle, and then you'll have sides that go up kind of like a fence. And then what we do in between the peak and the top of the fencing on the sides, I guess is what's up for us to figure out, but I don't think it'll be netting because netting can get holes. It'll be something stronger so that they can't easily see it out of it. But we just don't know better.
I'll just ask one more question.
Madam Chair, just your point quickly, we can supply that though once we. So we'll make sure that the staff's informed of what materials we use once we actually decide on final material.
Could you just speak to the dimensions of the garage? Because I know in the real estate listing and in your materials, you stated it's a 6-car garage. But just, it doesn't look like it would accommodate the 6 cars from the imaging.
Sorry.
That's three doors.
This side here.
It's three doors, and it's very long, so do we have the specs on it?
I
You
don't.
could fit two cars back to back.
So it just doesn't look like that. When you look at where you notated a 20-foot long parking spot to the left of that garage, just does not look like you could tandem get 6 cars in that garage. So I just would like some clarification on whether that's actually.
Yeah, we can get that, those notes, I don't have them off the top of my head, we can also just draw in how we can go.
It looks like they'd be parked in, so.
They definitely will be, I mean, the intention of it being the employee is that they would be parked owned by someone else, and so as operationally, we can work with that. But that is the intention.
I had a accessibility. I just want to be clear that even part, so you're showing one space in front of one of the garage doors as one of your 6 surface spaces. And if you were to take that one space and put it in the garage, you can see it right there. There's no way you fit 6 cars in there.
Yep, we'll review that, and we'll give you back what we can work with.
To that point, I think it would also be helpful to understand how many, like, do you have a lot of deliveries and are there, UPS trucks, Amazon trucks dropping off food? And it would be really helpful to understand the frequency of that and turnaround radius and with the long driveway. I have UPS and Amazon trucks drive over my grass all the time. So I think you also want to show the turning radius of them getting in and getting out. Similarly, your trash pickup, I think we want to understand the size of your trash pickup truck. And, are you gonna, it sounds like you don't have a large volume, but are you gonna have a dumpster? Where's the trash stored? Is it secure? And what kind of truck are you gonna have to make deliveries or pickup of trash and the turning radius of that to make sure that they can get out without hitting all your staff cars? So, too. And then last comment, I see that you have a ADA parking space, which is great. But then when you go to the building plans, if somebody were in a wheelchair, the only part of the structure that they could get into is that receiving area. And so I guess my question is, I know you're saying you don't want members of the public there, but it could be a staff person who is either permanently or temporarily in need of accommodation. And so one way around that, because it is a ranch and there's a ton of stairs inside, and I know that's complicated, but perhaps you could get a ramp to the door. I mean, when you're looking at the current garage to the left, is there a way to get an accessible entrance to that level so that you could make that whole second level accessible so that somebody could use the restroom? So I know the interior of the house is not our purview, but that does impact the outside.
Yeah, that should be no problem to you.
Those are my main comments.
Just a couple questions on the garage. Can you describe that? Is there an upper floor to it? Is it all just one volume?
So what's above the garage right now, you flip to the top floor plan.
Which garage are you referring to?
Oh, the 6-car garage.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Sorry.
that is all 1 story.
Okay, and there's no usable floor above it, or it's just basically a peak roof. Okay. And then going back to the question of the slope, it does appear that some of these enclosures are on a pretty significant slope. The aviary is crossing 9 feet, I think, 30 foot facility. Does seem like it would be hard to construct, it'd be hard to secure the base of it. I just, you may want to just take a look at how the enclosures are arranged in order to reduce any kind of undue site impact that might happen. The shed is a 20-foot long structure that crosses 6 feet, so there would be you could naturally return it, so it's not going. It's also going with the slope as opposed to against the slope. So you might just want to refine that a bit to avoid kind of a site impact. And you did mention that there'd be no earthwork, but it does look like there would be some earthwork.
In some of my investigation about how we wanted to build this place, I visited the nature center. near Squam Lake. I don't know if you guys have ever been there. It's beautiful, and they've done so many of their enclosures actually with the environment that they're in. So around lots of rocks and things like that, because I used to do construction before I did this, and part of me wants to see like a level floor, but in the wild, they're not dealing with that, especially in an aviary. The birds are really trying to track as them flying and not actually spending much time on the ground. So it would be important to construct it in a way that it was solid. Obviously, it would last, but as far as it being level, I really want us to try to work with the current space just to make it as natural as possible. And I saw that they were able to do it a lot at the nature center, so I'm hoping that we can. They did that.
When it's one.
Yes, the nature center. So,
Do you anticipate, right now, the area where the enclosure we're going is a lawn? Do you anticipate more trees, landscaping in order to create shade, more natural environment, or do you intend to like maintain the lawn areas in between them?
Right now, what we intend to do is maintain the lawn and everything. That's how they're set up now in our business facility. Over time, we may plant things if we feel like it, but right now, we just plan on the.
I have another second question, which is, it looks like you're planning a, like you said, for the semi-aquatic animals, that potential future enclosure around the pool. I know the fence that you've shown here is only three-sided. It doesn't continue along the side where the retaining wall is. And I thought, oh, maybe the retaining wall must be really tall, and I went to look at the pictures, and it does not look like it's particularly tall, so I wonder if it makes sense to just show a full enclosure there. For the sake of, so you don't have to, for some reason, ask permission for another.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We can add the dates like that.
So I have a quick question, and you may have already answered this, but the pathway that you showed to the enclosures, is that intended to be part of the educational purpose of this? And the reason why I say that is with ADA and other things, is that possible with this, if it is that usage?
No, the intention of those enclosures is to be secluded away from any public, so there is no intention of educational uses going on.
Okay, thank you.
Said earlier that the educational activities that involve members of the public don't happen on site. You just re-clarify that.
sometimes when people are coming with an animal that we've approved to come to us, we might educate them when they drop the animal off. But
Right.
yes,
But no public gathering on the
no.
site.
We do have students.
Yeah.
We do have students that are on the site for our interns, who volunteer, but that's, if you're considering them members of the public, since they're not employees, they are on site.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of it more like where you're doing demonstrations,
Right.
presentations.
None of that. No, anything that we would do like that would be through a Facebook Live. But not, yeah, but not on site. So
So,
like, we do have a much bigger space, so in the future, if we did want to do that, would be back before this board.
back to the previous comment about the fence on the wall, I really think that probably needs to be there if you do tend to have children there. Because the wall, as mentioned before, doesn't look like it's very high, and in my mind, that would be a safety risk for children on site to basically navigate over that pretty easily to the pool area.
I think when you say students, you mean adult students, correct?
Yes, you have to be over 18 to volunteer.
Just to address that comment, and the previous comment. I think what, I plan on doing is adding the fence line to the top of the retaining wall. Because
Yep.
that app wall protection for the retaining wall as well, and we'll just tie that into the fence lines on both sides.
That would be good.
Maybe this came up last night, so, but did anyone look or review, other than us for site plan review? Like, does the building inspector have? Or, okay, so keep it, that is, those are sort of permitted. To they submit TVs for that.
What were your prices on site for your business?
They're not permanent.
Structures, so we didn't have.
They're not structures, but they will be shown on your site plan. So we will have to be conforming to it, any decision.
Right.
That's out. So we'll make sure that they're built and that you get any details of our final specifications of the enclosures. But they're not structural. So there's not like a building permit and occupancy permit per se, but we can certainly build a condition of approval in where the board can feel comfortable that we're building these enclosures properly.
So
That's
Chad will
my-
have to go out and site for the changes.
Yeah, I mean, there could be like uplift under something with the roof that winds. Things happen that, you know, we just
Yeah.
want to make sure that they're fully safe and.
Yes, we do too. And we're happy to have the building inspector out there and the Board of Health, whoever wants to inspect it prior to us actually putting animals in the enclosure. We're happy to do.
So one other question. I know you mentioned what animals will you intend to have for the enclosures, and forgive me if I don't remember them, but is there a need for a waste management plan based on the animals?
No, so we have, they're smaller animals that don't have significant waste. So they are dealt with compact compost or regular trash. That's how we deal with it in Chelmsford as well. We've never had a Board of Health complaint. We've never had an odor complaint. We've never had a trash. I know that Carlisle doesn't do public curbside pickup. So we're intending to do trash pickup ourselves through private pickup. And we'll tweak that as necessary. So when we have more animals, if we need pickup twice a week, we'll make sure we do so. In the wintertime, when we have less, then we go to once a week, but we would ensure that the trash is picked up regularly. And I think, Madam Chair, one of the members already asked us like where it would be held, how it would be enclosed. Right now, we're proposing toters, no dumpster on site. We'll make sure that we mark the plan with the location and that there's an enclosure around it, just to make sure that the rest of the animals in the community aren't getting into our lovely trash. So point well taken. We'll make sure that that's updated on the civil law.
And it's just also just that it's not getting into the groundwater.
Correct.
It's not being left on site. It's all getting there.
Correct. Yeah, and we'll try to put it up on the pavement and mark a location, maybe put some. Yeah, so we'll make sure that's addressed.
So the other question I have is regards to water supply. Given that this will be a semi-educational facility, if we want to call it that, is the water supply there adequate for that? Or is there another need for additional wells or anything else we need to be aware of?
No additional wells are needed. We have sufficient water supply right now, and we have a brand new septic system as well, 7-bedroom septic system. So we did do that investigation as part of our due diligence. We're satisfied with both water and
Board of Health weighed in on that.
yes, and Board of Health has a comment letter in your package.
Okay, thank you.
And just to be clear on the waste, the ultimate destination of the waste from your private pickup is this is the town of Carlisle transfer station.
Wherever our private trash pickup
Yeah.
typically drops off, I don't know that, all private would go to Carlisle, some of them, I know some would go up to Haverhill, some of them go to different locations. But it would depend on which private trash pickup we choose.
Our intention at this point is not to go to the transportation directly. We'll go, the private trash company would get it. So if it's asked me, they'll go wherever they generally dispose of it. It wouldn't go necessarily to Carlisle transfer station. Nor are we bringing it to the transfer station.
Which is a great community meeting place. Never know what you're gonna
I
find.
might go hang out there, but we're not bringing our.
On it's clear you have educational uses vetted. And I'm
imagining that you have certain kinds of reporting that you do to your various committing state and federal agencies. Yes. Does that existing reporting include logs of the educational activities that you've done? No, the existing reporting for Mass Wildlife and for the federal permit is related to the amount of animals that come in, where they came from, what happened with them. With the education, sometimes we've had to report it to their school if that particular volunteer is getting credits at school, we'll log it, and I think schools, things like that, would be related to whatever school that particular volunteer came from.
So one of the considerations, since this is going through the Dover Amendment, is ensuring that 50% of your activities remain educational.
Sure.
And the question is, how can we have assurance of that over time? And
Well, the easy thing is it's typical to any use. So if I get a permit through a use through the town of Carlisle and I stop that use or I run a miss of that use, your building inspector can start finding me $300 per incident per day that I'm not in conformance with my use. So this would be typical of any use allowed in Carlisle. And just to speak about that a little bit, I know that sometimes it's hard to mince out what's educational, what's animal rehab here, but everything goes hand in hand. We don't have the educational component without having the animal component. So does our Facebook go down? Did we stop doing outreach? Did we not have a Nibby or Stanley? Did we start getting complaints? Just like any other use in the town of Carlisle, you have ramifications for that. You can make it a condition of approval. So you can have some belt suspenders there as well, outside of your regular zoning rate.
but that would require a complaint, right? Or because
That's right. Just like any other use permit. Like somebody generally has to complain, somebody's storing too many vehicles, or now they're doing car repair, not antique car storage. Generally speaking, that's where building complaints come from, or non-conformance with zoning is from the neighborhood. And they're the best, least of all, I have found in making sure, especially new uses are in conformance with use. And also, we're going to be accepting conditions of this board that we're going to be taking seriously. I'm on the board, Casey's on the board, Dana's the director. So we're taking this very seriously, and that's our mission, to educate and rehabilitate the animals. So we will make sure that we comply with our conditions.
If I may,
Yeah.
we get free help from vet students. So, so it works very well for our nonprofit to have these variants. Zoe's one of the most intelligent women I've ever met in my life, and helped me stay up all night saving a baby beaver just earlier this week. And we talked about beavers and how their adipose tissue is more dense and how to sub-Q and things like that. And I enjoy it. It helps save the rescue money working with these students, and it is part of our permit. So it's something that we're very committed to for multiple reasons.
And just that I can see where your concern's coming from. Sometimes with these, I won't call it a weird use, but unusual uses, when a board's trying to figure out how they can ensure, sometimes we'll have a check-in method that we can offer, because I know you probably can't make it a condition of approval, but we can say we'll come back after 3 months of operation and give you that information, so you can know that we can continue and check in. And obviously it won't go ad nauseum perpetuity, but at least for the very near future, we can have a couple check-ins with the planning board to make sure that we're keeping our end of the bargain and make sure the education is moving forward and our use is proper under. And we'd be happy to commit to that.
So one point to note here, your articles of organization with the state don't reference any educational components to it. It would probably be helpful if you, as a corporation, would think about going back and amending that, because that would probably address a lot of the issues that we're facing now with how your organization is framed from the state's perspective as a wildlife and local rescue.
Yeah, we can look at that language. I know our mission statement for sure does talk about education, but if any of those.
Yeah, I'm looking at your articles of organization right now. So it does not say anything about educational. So the point I'm trying to make is, if it did contain language in there, this would be a moot point.
Yep. No, I mean, those are easily amended, so we can certainly do that.
The question from my perspective is just, you're gonna outlast all of these members of the board, probably, hopefully.
Most
Right.
likely.
As members serving on this board. Longevity comment. But we have a responsibility to ensure that use remains compliant over the long term. And I don't know that relying on complaints from a facility that discourages public presence is the right mechanism to
No.
give everyone a level of comfort that you're continuing to do all the things that you say you're gonna do and you're not doing. And so it's not a matter of, I don't believe what you say to my face. This is a longevity and long-term kind of a question.
Yeah.
And I'm not at a level of comfort with relying on abutter complaints as the mechanism.
I agree with you, Addie. I think there should be objective measures here versus subjective measures because objectively, it's a fact. Subjectively, it's another story. So we may want to think about how we want to frame that to make this work.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I'm thinking about it that way. So thank you. And I think reporting probably is the easiest mechanism. Not just to our Facebook, but us self-reporting to the planning. So, and we can think about a condition to suggest to the board to ease your concern there that we are continuing our educational mission. And maybe it's a mix of what Joe has suggested and what you suggested, modifying our articles and then doing reporting to the board to ensure that we're continuing our educational use.
So that sort of the flip side of that same issue is that it is now an educational use and not a residential use. You have a manager on site as part of the educational use, but if there is some concern or there may be some concern that there might be residential creep, if you will. So I would suggest that you proffer some language for a condition that's related to that.
Sure, happy to.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, so I will open it up to members of the public. I'm going to ask you to limit your comments to 2 minutes, hopefully less than that, shouldn't have to. State your name and your address and who is. Oh, Harlan might end up with. I don't know that for sure. But so, Carlo, residents first, state your name and your address. I'm going to go left to right across the room. So,
Thank you. Rajiv Mekhi, I'm a resident of 83 Palliser Drive, which is an abutter to the proposed site. I'll just make 2 primary comments. First of all, I really support the wonderful mission. So I have a chance to meet with Jane for some chunky facility. I think the work is outstanding. I think you can be a supporter of conservation and wildlife and also still ask the question, is this the right place to put a facility with this profile? And after talking with many other abutters and neighbors who are not abutters, it's clear to me that there is a lot of concern about the impact of this facility in our neighborhood on the safety of the children, the cyclists, and the drivers down North Road. There's a very special circumstance around North Road that I think people need to understand. This is not a typical road in Carlisle. There's not even enough width to put a lane divider in the middle. In my area, in our area of Palliser, where it abuts, where it meets North Road, it's 17 to 18 feet wide. We have a lot of cyclists coming down the road, and Carlisle requires drivers to maintain a 4-foot distance between your car and your cyclist. You cannot do that around this curve. And certainly you can't do that and pass with another car coming away. So we have a dangerous combination of 2 things, narrow road and blind curves. And there are really 3 S curves that are right around 1090 North. And I see lots of nodding heads. People, all of us in the area have had instances where we were driving within the speed limit and were surprised. And we avoided an accident. There have been accidents. A child just down the road, Rutland intersection, 2 years ago this week, in fact, 2 years ago in 2 days, was involved in a two-car collision, thrown from the car, head injury, life-threatening, had to be helicoptered to Boston Children's Hospital. The next intersection down, a motorcyclist died last month, which is the just further down the road. So safety concerns that you hear from those in the neighborhood do not take away from our support of wildlife and conservation. Those are real concerns. We have reasons to believe that any significant increase in traffic will present a risk to drivers in the area. The second and last point that I'll make is that we are basing this entire discussion on compliance with the Dover Amendment. I've seen the interim opinion from the building commissioner that was shared with me today. It was an opinion. It was not a final determination. So that I think is a distinction between what was said in the cover letter from Newhouse. The building commissioner will have to look at the final plans before making a determination as to whether this meets Dover Amendment requirements. Now, as I understand it, Dover requirement requires the predominant use of the facility to be for education. As this discussion today illustrates, it is very hard to imagine that this facility's primary purpose on site is education. I'm not talking about posts on Facebook or on Instagram or on YouTube. I'm not talking about maybe visiting schools. This is the use of the facility itself. Now, if you want to make it an education center and you're going from half an acre to 14 acres as a nonprofit, I have to believe you're going to want to, over the long term, come back to the board and say, how can we use this to educate the public? That means more people coming to the facility. Our backs are going to be against the wall, and it will be hard to say no to these uses. This is the time when we have to think about an organization that has 500,000 followers on Facebook, has celebrity animals, that has been phenomenal in outreach. Of course, you would try to grow. If you're buying a $2 million 4-bedroom, 4-bath pool property in Carlisle, of course you need to generate revenues. And why would you not leverage this facility for that? So I think we need to be anticipating these potential scenarios, but I do want everyone to understand the unique circumstances, the dangerous circumstances around North Road with increased traffic, because those are not mentioned at all in the Newhouse materials.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's try to limit the repetition of the comments if possible. If you want to repeat or emphasize a comment that was previously made, just second it rather than repeating all of it. Please, thank you. Yes.
Hi, my name's Ailey Bedford. I'm here with my husband, John Cahill. I'm an abutter of the property. What is your address? I'm 150 Aldershot Lane. I think that might be the closest abutter. I'm not sure. I'm also a scientist and a CTO, so I'm very data-driven. My husband's an engineer, so really appreciated the thoroughness of the questions that I've listened to tonight. I wouldn't have thought of those things. So thank you. A couple of things around safety and some of the considerations. Absolutely on traffic. I would say let's be data-driven on that. I like the question that you asked about let's get those numbers, about 7 cars a day coming and going, thinking about Amazon and so on, as we have in all our houses. So I think that's easy to get the data on. And I would say that as a cyclist in Braybrook, myself, and also a skier, sometimes we have a lot of traffic on North Road, don't we? Lots more than that 7 cars a day. So I do think that's we're data-driven about that, and I don't know cyclists. Let's put that in perspective with traffic overall. On safety concerns, I really appreciated the questions about waste and about safety in general. And thinking about that as a biologist, I actually did a bit of research into rehabbers across Massachusetts, and I was pleased to find out that they are tightly regulated by Mass Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, do have regular audits and do have an annual report. And so that gave me some comfort if we think of those things. And then finally, I do also believe, and this is clearly qualitative comments from my husband as well, that in Carlisle, we do have a very strong culture of being both good neighbours to our neighbours and thinking about safety and thinking about people, and also to the environment as well and to animals. And so I think that Newhouse Rescue really brings that together in a very unique way. It is really, really appropriate to our town. So strong support for that as well.
Thank you. Yes.
This is very quick, but in reference to.
Your name and your
Oh,
address.
Mary
please.
Roberts, 1119 North Road. This winter, was a snowier, icier winter than usual. But I made the point in driving down North Road, anytime an oncoming car came, I pulled over and I stopped my car and let that car pass. And the only time I didn't, the car caught my rear view mirror and shattered it. And of course, that car was on the way, but I think it's a case in point of how little room there is, particularly in snow, and particularly since Carlisle doesn't salt the way other towns do. So conditions in winter can be very dangerous.
It's worth noting that the applicant highlighted the fact that in winter, their car traffic is significantly reduced. Next, please, in the back.
I'll let you go first. You can go. Please. Hi, my name is Jim Sultanstall. I live with my wife at 45 North, which is right at the bottom of the driveway. And we've had, in the wintertime particularly, is very, very dangerous there. And I want to just reiterate what these two folks have said. We had one incident a couple of years ago where somebody was coming down the driveway of 1090, right? Yes. And the driver couldn't stop and came across the road right into the stone wall, the part of our property. So it's a dangerous spot. I also would like to compliment the philosophy and the whole project objective here. That's remarkable and wonderful. The other question I have is very quick, and that is I'm very unclear about what the supervision is in that house. Is there someone there all the time or no? And what are the qualifications of that person in terms of how they take care of the end?
Would the applicant like to address that question directly, please?
Well, who will be there?
And the permanence of that person.
So there will always be someone on site. Also, because the animals need monitoring, like someone needs to be on site at all times. Depending who it is, it's either myself, I'm a vet tech, or a veterinarian or a licensed veterinarian, or one of our trained staff. Someone who's licensed with the state, with a license to rehab wildlife. I also want to state that there are 180 wildlife rehabilitators in the state of Massachusetts, because we're the third most densely populated state in the country. As of right now, there's no town that rehabbers aren't allowed to rehab in. So I hope that Carlisle will remain one.
Thank you.
Right now in the back there.
Hi, my name is Akshay Jain. I'm a resident on 26 McAllister Drive. My property abuts 1090 Road all the way from North Road till the garage. So we are able to see every traffic that starts from North Road all the way. Every time they open the garage, light comes right in my office. A very recent incident right before the property sale, there was construction where they created a new septic tank. It took about 2 weeks. Those 2 weeks were the worst for me to work. I could not even work from home. Like the kid would cry every time the construction truck would back up with the beeping sound. And I just foresee that happening a lot more with large vehicles coming in just for regular purposes, right? This is a bigger operation, so it's not going to be just sedans and SUVs. So that is one of my top points on top of what Rajiv and everybody's mentioned on traffic is a huge problem. My wife, myself, and other neighbors, we have our cars skidding down McAllister Drive every year in winters. We've replaced the road, replaced our tires. It doesn't stop. Every time there is ice, every time there is winter, we have potholes filled with ice and cars are skidding down. It's not safe. It's not safe for people who live there, people who drive there for the very first time. There was a time when I drove 4 years ago, the very first time. I was driving 5 miles an hour throughout until I got to Billerica, where there is actual visibility and snow is not piled up on site. Right? There is road to drive for 2 cars. So traffic and safety for my toddler, for kids in the neighborhood who play on site is a big concern. Another data point I want to bring up, notice a lot of Uber drivers and pickup drivers, they drive up McAllister Drive instead of 1090 North. And the people who live on top of the hill would know more because they all go up to the top of the hill. But even our drivers drive to 1090 North Road because that's how sometimes, GPS works. And I have to walk through the forest to pick up my delivery. That's pretty much almost every month for us. In winter, in summer, anytime that happens. People come up wrong driveways because there are so few. There's another house down on North Road that is a yellow house. People drive up that driveway when they want to come to my house. They go, we see the yellow house. We don't see the blue house that we're talking about. So we have a lot of people going in all directions. So managing traffic, how big the roads are, what type of signage is put together is going to be very important before we make any decisions on this facility. So I really request we have data now and a foreseeable data put together in front of the planning board so that we can make a more informed decision rather than a hurry.
Okay, thank you very much. Next in the back there.
Hi, Liz Bishop, 291 Kimball Road. I will applaud the planning board for having its Q&A right now, its info session. It's lighted up the town and Facebook groups of both sides that are very interested in what Newhouse brings to our community. So I thank both everyone here for attending. I do want to say that this is not a discussion about the safety of North Road. This is absolutely not about North Road. If you live on North Road, you need to have a separate discussion with the planning board about changing North Road, a scenic road. Is McAllister Drive a private road or is it an approved road? So there's issues that have to do with the safety of living on North Road, and there's issues with Newhouse doing what they're going to bring community. Two separate issues. I know that Sarah discussed about the Amazon people coming to her neighborhood. I live in the much maligned Tall Pines neighborhood. The constant barrage of all kinds of delivery vehicles is everywhere. Yes, it's exacerbated. We've got a twisted turny scenic road. That needs to be addressed. When it comes to use or outside use of a residential property, being something other than a residential property, in our town, we do not even police what our residential properties are being used for. And it has to be turned in by a neighbor or someone else, knowing that something else is happening, whether it's a single family use that has multiple families living in a single family home. So I think Newhouse is going to be a complete package to describe for us all the good things they're going to do for the neighborhood, for the town. And we have to decouple road issues. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Your arm's not tall. Sure, and then.
Good evening. My name is Larry Bearfield. I'm resident of 1127 North Road, which is diagonally across from the property. Quite frankly, it's been a while since Rob and I attended a planning board meeting where we were the focus of attention. So this is pretty delightful. We appreciate it. Robin and I visited Jane at her children's facility, and like others, we were impressed by her passion and dedication to the nonprofit's cause. We were also impressed by the cleanliness of the facility, and the enclosures were well built and maintained well. When we asked about noise, it was interesting to hear that most of her patients are babies. They don't make noise because they don't want to attract predators. She had educated us while we were there at that moment. We have a few concerns as well, and they do. They are part of the North Road issue. Sorry, Liz.
That's okay.
And in particular, and I won't go into depth about it, but in particular on one of the S curves, every winter time we have waters flooding down and freezing the road, and it's sustained. Now, that's not their problem. That's a problem for our DPW that needs to be addressed because it's pretty bad. It's really bad in the town. We asked about signage and was told apparently the plan is to have a square foot sign on North Road that presumably will not be lit. That's our understanding. That's inappropriate. We asked about the future of Newhouse as well. And we were satisfied by Jane's response, but we feel the planning board should include future parameters about visitors. Let's see what. Finally, and this is a more general comment, that applies to what we're hearing tonight. A lot of folks went around when we went through an incredible vetting process for firms coming to the store. We ended up with numerous conditions as part of our approval process. And to Stacy's point, nobody followed up. It was just that the conditions were imposed and then they were left out there. And after we sold the store, for example, we weren't allowed to have any tables or chairs outside of the fenced yards area. That went away. The handicap ramp was always blocked. Nobody checks up on this stuff. My suggestion is that the town needs to put in some kind of process to keep track of what goes on in conditions that are imposed on businesses and residents. Thank you. We support.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to get some on this side of the room, but I know you've got your hand up constantly, so we'll be here and then we'll move our way over.
Hi, my name is Victoria Lang, and I'm the wife of Shiv and Haya. I live at 83 McAllister Drive, which flanks the proposed site. So I do, again, I have enormous respect for your mission, and Jane was kind enough to allow us to record. And she, as everybody said, she runs a tight ship. It's clean. I have no concerns about the animals getting loose. My concern is that Chelmsford's roads and infrastructure is vastly different from Carlisle. And although they're in a residential neighborhood, they have a very wide, they're almost in this cul-de-sac, and there's like 3 cars to pass each other right in front of their driveway. If you guys have toured the facility, you can envision that. And their current driveway is so narrow that there is no way that 2 cars could pass each other. And then if one car decides to pop out of that driveway, what incoming traffic would definitely hit. So and Carlisle doesn't have the road infrastructure like some of the neighboring towns like Chelmsford, like Bedford. And I'm just wondering why propose a site with donor money in one of the more expensive areas in Massachusetts without the possibility of expanding the operation because of the road condition. And that's fine. I mean, my main concern is, of course, the traffic safety. And I understand that this meeting is not about North Road, but this has to do with the continuation of your operation. And I think out of consideration for your potential future neighbors, you have to think of plan B for how to make that road safer, how to make an entrance safer, how to make McAllister Drive safer for our children, bicyclists, pedestrians, and vehicles.
All right, so before we continue, I just need to note that the Dover Amendment limits what we are allowed to do relative to conditions as well as limitations related to a whole variety of things that we normally can do on a site plan review. One of those things is traffic and safety outside of our purview for the Dover. So I understand that there's a lot of concern here about traffic and safety. I think that the applicant has put forth more than they need to in terms of creating the data to demonstrate that the impacts are what they will be. But we're per the Dover Amendment, our hands are tied. So we're going to keep moving on. Further questions. If you're going to raise a safety and traffic issue, please be brief. Yes. Name and address, please.
Jim, 45 Agnes Street. I live on the other side of town, so I'm far from the property. But I think my first kind of reaction was sort of just disappointing, sort of in the fact that there's no on-site education. So it's, the mission sounds great. It also feels like this should be a commercially zoned enterprise where you get a lot of traffic, and also you can kind of get kids to come visit, kind of see Libby, and just kind of all the good stuff associated with like an educational institution. So it kind of doesn't feel like that's there. And so like as a resident, I'm just joking.
I understand. I am too, actually. I want to turn that 6-car garage into like a place where a bunch of kids could come, but I also want to be respectful of the people in the neighborhood. Right now, Nibby is taken to schools. We've actually been to Carlisle, we were at Sustainability Day, and Stanley does go to school as well. We do educate, and the thing with the Dover Amendment is Nibby needs a place to live in order to educate, okay? Stanley needs a place to live in order to educate. In order to do educational posts about the animals that are poisoned, I have to be able to treat those animals that are poisoned and test them and rescue them. So it is very difficult to separate what I do day to day to save these animals' lives and what is necessary to educate these children at these schools, these vet students, and the general public. It is all so interwoven that it really can't be separated. And if you look at my permit, my state and federal permit, one of my jobs is to educate the public. It's a large percentage of what we do. We save far more animals by educating people on what they should and shouldn't do with our wildlife. So it is very much a part. I share your disappointment, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I want kids to be able to use your property.
I do too.
You know, it's like,
I do too. But I'm also, but I understand their concerns too.
Because then it almost feels like it doesn't feel educational. It feels more like a bad.
Right. A lot of, so we do have students, like I do have Zoe here who can talk to you about these rare opportunities. So in order to get a federal permit to help our birds of prey, you actually have to have hands-on experience with birds of prey. You have to have 200 hours. It is very, very difficult to get that, which is why we don't have enough federally permitted rehabbers. There's only 4 of us that are allowed to do waterfowl in the entire state of Massachusetts. And part of it's because there's not enough educational facilities where we can get those hours. So that's one of the things that we want to do to help our waterfowl, to help our raptors, to help people get that federal permit. But I still am very dedicated. The kids are actually my favorite. I like kids way more than I like adults. I don't even want to be here right now. Okay? And so we go to middle schools, and Carlisle will be a priority, and any events in Carlisle to help the kids to meet.
But why not have it be in space?
I would like it to, but I also
Like,
again.
convert the 6-car garage.
Yeah.
You know.
That was fun to me, but it's
We
not
can
gonna
take this conversation outside, so still raised. We're gonna take 4 more questions or comments from the room, and then we'll do the ones on Zoom. We'll start with Chris in the back.
So my name is Chris Johnson, I actually live there at 1090 North Road. It's great to see my neighbors. Many of you that don't know. I just wanted to say a couple things about traffic. Our driveway, yes, you can pass. By the way, there's at least 3, 4 places along the way you can stop, you can see it straight where you can pass. When you go down the bottom of the hill, it flattens out. There's a nice, our old septic was off to the left, nice place to park. You can walk up if you want. I don't see that as an issue. When my daughter landed on Jim's wall, that's because, like Larry said, it's, we have a stream at the very bottom of the road that runs along North Road, that if they don't clean the culvert, it jumps onto North Road, becomes a sheet of ice. That's how she landed on the road. So it's more a town issue. Also, the street sign where the kid had the accidents because the town didn't trim the brush. Well, they did the brush this year, so you can see a lot. You couldn't even see that stop sign that kid pulled through. So there's been there are safety issues. I get it. I don't see that they're going to have many more people than we had with 8 people living there. My dad collected antique cars. That's why there's a big garage there. It actually has 4 garage doors. There's 3 in the front, 1 in the back. You can drive right into the back of it while you do the 3 along the front, whether you put 6 contacts side by side or you put 5. You can put 5 or 6 cars in there. We've done it, collected. What else did I want to say? There is no fence around the pool right now. It was grandfathered. So yes, I agree. A fence would be a really good thing to do. For the beavers, for kids, for anybody who goes to that property. Was there another question? I don't know. Any other questions? There's not lights.
Yeah, the lights are just a switch.
On and
It's not over electric.
But we do have at the bottom driveway so long, there's 2 street lights on our driveway. I'm sure all the neighbors know that. They light up the whole forest. My dad liked light, so that he put in 2 street lights, regular street lights that go down the road. You come down our driveway, it's not like McAllister, which is into the road. It's nice and slow down to the end. see both ways, I trim it back, there should not be a problem with cars. 7 cars a day, 2 trips, I don't see it as a problem. I was there 44 years, and this is what we thought was a good thing for Carlisle. Great for the neighborhood, fit the character of Carlisle. We even took a loss on the, not a lot of loss, we had a better offer on the property and are waiting for all this to go through in order for this to happen.
Thank you. The gentleman's glasses.
So my name is Caitlin Spalding. I live at 1173 North Road, and I'm going to bring up another traffic safety comment because while I understand the current safety of the improvement here, the addition of non-residential traffic is, and the road is already a problem as is. So it's disappointing to know that even though you have residents telling you that the road is not sufficient now, and adding additional traffic, 30 trips a day is plus deliveries of trash and all this is significant to be on the road. I think it's problematic. It's problematic for bikers, for walkers, a lot of which we have on the road. So I do think that that is an issue that many have here that you said we will be misleading. I think the one other comment I'll make is it sounds like there's a lot of gaps that are still based on questions for asking the council. And I think for this get approved, I hope there's a lot of opinions and making sure that there's good plans for. But I do think there's a lot of safety issues for traffic.
Said 4, now there's four more. We're gonna go to these two in the front because I think they've had an exist for a while, and then we'll go back to the back, and then we're gonna go to so Sarah.
Sarah Wenger, 65 Pagebrook Road. I try to keep this brief, but I'm a veterinarian as well. And so just to speak to the education of these types of facilities, I actually don't have had a ton of experience with Newhouse, but having facilities like this to educate not the children, but the adults who need the education is really important. It's really hard to find. And as a vet student, you've got to get a lot of hours. You've got to get a lot of hours to get into veterinary school. You got to get a lot of hours to graduate, to get a job. And it's a very small niche field, especially for people who want to be in this area. So having another good facility around here is going to benefit not a lot of people because it's a small field, but it's a really important one for all of you that have pets. So.
Christina Chrysotolopoulos, Hemlock Hill Road, co-chair of the Environmental Sustainability Committee. The committee has actually not officially discussed this, but I think it's safe to say that their presence here actually aligns with our mission. Newhouse has been invaluable presenting information for the last 3 before. I don't know if it was all 4. Route to Sustainability Days, reaching a lot of Carlisle residents and actually residents beyond Carlisle as well. I think it is hugely important. It is an educational outreach. It is hugely important to educate adults, as you said. And so I think that they'd be a perfect fit for Carlisle. Thank you.
Thank you. The gentleman in the public, yes, that's you.
My name is Harry White. I'm a direct butter. I live at 1032 North Road. And generally, I support the concept. I have some technical issues with regard to cages and the like, and what animal waste and increased rate of runoff that will occur because if you're parking on whatever you're parking on back land, you can increase the rate of runoff. So detention or retention might be appropriate on the downslope slide. There is a wetland that separates us. Let's say the wetland is probably 200 feet wide. House is approximately 600 feet from my house, your house. In the back of my house is a game trail. Okay, we've seen everything from birds and deer, and coyotes, fisher cats, turkeys, bear, in front of the bear. One of my questions would be whether or not the scents, smells, if you will, that are created by the outside cages would entice more critters, if you will. We have enough squirrels. And And the deer, we'll get plenty of deer too. Yeah. But, I think that the traffic issues are gonna be there no matter what happens. I don't know whether you did a study as to whether or not you could do cluster zoning or not, whether or not you could do pork chop lots. Where there's, let's say there's four houses at 5 trips a day, maybe 20 trips a day for housing. So the trade-off becomes small. So I'm an advocate of the use. I have some technical concerns, but what's for now?
So maybe what we'll do is we'll ask the applicant to address the question about the odor and then,
Odor and noise are there.
you just be,
Sure, I'm sorry, I do tend to talk too much. So my dog is way louder than any of the animals. The nice thing about the wild animals is, okay, right, I met your dogs, yeah. So the wild animals, like it's like if you go in the woods are actually filled with wildlife. You just don't hear them. They're not showing themselves. I have 80 wild animals in my backyard, and even those that don't support us coming can tell you that they're not loud, that you would never know if they were actually there. We are very adamant about keeping the enclosures clean, keeping the animals clean. So I haven't had any issues with wildlife approaching the enclosures, or animals destroying the enclosures coming from outside. I think that these animals are naturally what is out there. So it's a little more condensed. It's what nature is used to, the smells and sounds and things.
okay, thank you. And then, yes.
I'm the last one. So my name is Jojo. I live in 1095 North Road, just opposite this proposal, the property. So I'm very familiar with North Road. So as no chance, like North Road is very narrow road, and especially the proposal, the property was in between two very sharp turns and with a greater slope. There is no any shop for shoulder, anything it will be shared with motorcycle, car, trucks, and works and runners. Especially from March to October, it's the high peak for nature bikers. So you will see a lot of kids or bicycle. Myself was hit by bicycle and get hurt. Of course, it's not a severe injury, but a fatal incident also happened. The second, the proposal already mentioned they estimate 15 cars a day. So I'm assuming this is the perspective based on current data. Do we have any long-term data? And also this is education center. Do we have any long-term if they want to go to the on-site education center? So I respect this mission. It's very notable. It's very remarkable. What they are doing is very good. However, this community is primary residency. Why we change it to primary residency into I will say it's not a primary residence. It's not commercialized, but we expect the long term it will be impact our local community resident. I think resident safety is also top priority for us. And I want the board will they consider long-term impact to us. Long-term, do we a town will be changing the road for this mission? I will welcome.
Thank you very much. We have two online that have been waiting for time. Nick Ogden, name and address, please.
Hi, thanks very much. I'm Nick Ogden. I'm at 121 Hartwell Road, shortly moving to 322 West Street, also in Carlisle. Just briefly for me to say that I think the new house has a really great mission. I'm actually supportive of it, and I think it would be a really great addition to the town, very consistent with the town's culture and priorities, and a great addition, especially considering the lack of residential uses here. I think what they're doing is both unobtrusive and highly consistent with town values. So I'm strongly supportive of them. And then also just to say that I think a lot of the concerns we've heard today are either not within the remit of the planning board, or if they are extremely speculative and are really touching on broader issues that it doesn't sound like Newhouse would actually have any negative impact on at all. So I would urge the planning board to think critically about which of these concerns are actually going to manifest versus speculative or kind of fantastical. So just to say, I'm very supportive of this and urge the planning board to be as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Danny Abernathy. Mr. Abernathy, can you state your name and address, please? You're talking, we can't hear you, and you're not on mute. Maybe your microphone isn't working. Maybe you can get that working. We'll move to Abigail Zimmerman and come back to you.
Hi, Abby Zimmerman, 168 Sunset Road. So I work at Mass Audubon, and I was fortunate to be part of the wildlife care renovation that happened 2 years ago. So I'm very familiar with what goes into wildlife rehabilitation. And everything I've seen here is fantastic. And I just have to say, the work that Newhouse does is so important. And she is reaching so many children and families, and the ripple effect is immeasurable. And in this day and age, with so many people using rodenticides and just not thinking about their impact, I really hope that we welcome her to Carlisle, because she does fantastic work. She's doing everything right. And I think that the right thing for us as Carlilians would be to let her join our community.
All right. Thank you very much. Back to Danny Abernathy. Are you able to?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
Wonderful, thank you all. So yeah, Danny Abernathy, 1173 North Road. I'll be very brief on the road comments. I just want to address some points that were brought up before. You have to drive on North Road to get to McAllister. The two are inextricably linked, so I think they need to be considered with one another, although I understand it's outside the remit of the planning board. The second part, also on the road comment, is as someone who has taken injured animals to a veterinary clinic as well as a rehabilitation center, I can say as a citizen who typically normally doesn't do that, I was not driving my safest having a sick animal in the car. And I think that's one thing that hasn't been brought up before, is if there's a bunch of citizens taking injured animals to a site on a road that there's already safety concerns for, that's something to be considered. The last thing I'll have is actually a question, which is probably most appropriate for this forum. Was there kind of a control plan submitted to the city if there was an escape either out of quarantine, or let's say in one of our storms that happens every week, a tree falls on an enclosure, a bunch of animals get out? Is there a control plan that has already been submitted and vetted? And does it rely on city resources? Thank you.
So I guess the question is there do you have a response protocol to an accidental release?
We have an emergency response protocol with the USDA. If we run out of, if the cage is destroyed, or if there's a fire, things like that.
That's something you can submit supplemental to the planning board. Sure. All right, we are almost an hour over. I'm going to take two more comments. I'm going to take actually one from the gentleman who has not yet spoken. So please go ahead.
So thank you. My name is Mark Spears. I live at 1153 North Road. Many people here know me, especially the residents, because for two reasons. I'm their plow guy, or the second reason is I've been walking North Road with my dog for 40 years. My setup dogs. And so I live at 1153. I walk right by this residence all the way down to Rutland. It's a really, really nice walk. I'm not going to express too much about the nature of the road. I agree with it all. But I am going to bring up 2 points that have not been brought up. One is It's a 20-mile-an-hour road. And I think everybody would agree, it's the right speed limit for that road. And having walked that road 1,000 times, I can tell you maybe 1 in 5 cars obey that speed limit. I can tell you how many times I've had to grab my dog and jump off the road because somebody doing 40, 45 on that road comes up over a hill or around a corner and nearly takes us out. So I understand it's not your problem. Whose problem is it? And shouldn't we be addressing that group before decisions get made about this property? The second item, oh, by the way, I really do like the clause. If this is gonna be almost like an emergency facility, if the residents today don't obey a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, how do you expect somebody with a wounded animal coming up that road to drive 20 miles an hour to get to the facility? I think that's very unrealistic. And then what is it gonna take? Somebody to have a really severe accident, kill somebody, knock down a biker, kill my dog, kill me, whatever. Now, the second item is litter and trash. Now, it doesn't sound like a big deal. For those of you that live on North Road or drive North Road, it's a very clean road. Why is it very clean? In my 40 years, I walk with a trash bag and I pick up all the litter. And it's not a lot. But if you, by comparison, you go out to Route 4 and you look at the litter and how horrendous that is, then it's not a stretch to say we're going to bring in a whole, maybe not a lot of cars, but we're going to bring in a lot of new types of people coming down the road. And is North Road now going to become kind of like a wasteland, like some of the other roads are? So my biggest concern is, I understand it's not your problem. Whose problem is it? And how do we get in front of them to voice the safety concerns that they need to address? And I can tell you this, it would be many millions of dollars for them to make that road a more appropriate road to support businesses. Many millions.
Let me be clear about what the Dover Amendment is. Dover Amendment says that for an educational use, the rights that a town has to condition that use, require that use, or that user to provide mitigation, and the ability of the town to say no is almost non-existent. It's not that it's not our problem, it's not in our ability to regulate, given that this is a Dover Amendment use. Safety at this location is obviously a challenge. That's something we should address as a town, whether this happens or not, I believe. And I understand there's extensive concern about this. There's just limitations to what we can and can't do, and what we can and can't do. Are there any new comments?
Can I just add, just based on this latest comment, what I heard is that it's largely going to be employees coming to the site with deliveries as needed, discouraging drop off of animals as much as possible. And I'm not hearing.
Maybe the applicant can.
I don't know if there are any
clarifications
clarifications
on
or context.
how much drop off you actually have.
Most of the drop off that we receive is from animal control officers, actually, around town. We work with all the local animal control officers, usually abutting ones. So most animals come through them because we don't like the address to get out. It is occasionally someone will have a baby animal that they can bring us directly, but a lot of times we don't want people handling the animals. So especially if it's a bird of prey, or fox or something like that, I will go out myself to actually where we have the rescue van, so we can collect the animals ourselves.
Okay, thank you very much. This is a new. So we will be continuing this meeting, I'm sure. So we will have opportunities for more comments, but we are an hour over. So I'll give me a show of hands of how many more people want to comment. Okay, so that's a lot of new ones here, folks. Okay, so let's hold on. Show me if you want to comment again. How many people, please? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. And 2 on 7. Okay. We're gonna start on this side and go that way because.
Hi, thank you. I'm Ling Zhou. I'm living in 60 McAllister Drive. After this meeting, I just want to raise a question. As a small town and a purely residential area, do you think we really have the capability to arrange another extra staff for the waste collection, fire, traffic, or public safety resource to run a large facility here? Because we usually no business and no institutional running at our area. So running a wildlife rehab center, I think will create unexpected strain on local municipal services, which were never designed to support such an operation in a residential zone. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Who was the number 6? Okay.
Quick zoning question.
Name and address again.
This is tantamount to a
Name and address again, please. Your name and address again.
Oh, name and address. I'm Harry White, 1032 North Road, the director butter. The zoning question is this is tantamount to a special permit, if you will.
No, it's a site plan review. Dover.
And you're the only approval authority involved in this approval.
Well, there's Board of Health, there's
Okay.
Conservation Commission,
Okay,
there's
if in the future,
building inspector.
if in the future, public funding dries up, or however the business falls apart, does this zoning travel with the land or with the use?
The zoning is with the, and the site plan review is for the use on that site. If the use is no longer active on the site,
It reverts back to residential B.
it reverts back to residential.
But just for clarification, it never loses its residential status.
Right.
It still continues to be residential property. It's just the use under Dover.
Thank you.
Okay, number 5.
Hello, my name is Shelly Chen. I'm a direct and the closest abutter to 1090 North Road, 26 McAllister Drive. I have a 3.5-year-old, and every winter we see a coyote who has been living there, cohabiting with us. I did not get a sense of how the predators that will be attracted to the rescued animals outside be prevented. There is not much of trees or a space between our and their property, and right now it's very easy for any type of animal to come down to our property. So a very clear explanation and maybe in writing would really be helpful. How are they going to prevent the predators? Because I'm concerned about just letting my daughter play out, especially during summer and during winters. There will be no food for predators in the forest. They often come down to our properties. So that would be really great. And secondly, this is mainly a residential area, and I think things have been said that we are speculating about traffic. There are many speculative things on both sides, then I would say. But if you could just give me an idea about that, that would be great.
Absolutely. As a mother myself, I can fully understand what you're saying. Because we've had this for 8 years, I have a 9-year-old and a 16-year-old, so they've been living in this house that I do this in. We haven't had predators coming towards the house, though this is going to be in a wooded area, so I can see your concern there. Where you're saying in the winter time, we have animals in cages. In the winter time, we're not raising babies because wildlife, it's spring and summer, they're having babies. So we're getting injured animals that are hit by a car, things like that. So most of the animals that we have in the winter are triaged inside. If they are outside, they're adults, just like to acclimate really quickly. But it's not like we have a bunch of squirrels in a cage or a bunch of raccoons in a cage or anything like that. So if we were having raccoons, squirrels, things in enclosures outside, it would be in the spring and the summer. And the predators can't get into, it's like when people have chickens, the predators, they should be predator proof, but predators can't get inside So
they cannot get inside your cage, but they can definitely be attracted by those animals and come to our yard, you know? I mean, so it's, yeah, it's a concern on my end.
Sure,
And
sure.
Chelmsford is a very different town than Carlisle, like you mentioned, that it's not a very wooded area and there are less animals.
Right.
Carlisle has tons of its own native animals.
So, right, and by that saying, there are already lots of coyotes and foxes in the woods in Carlisle, right? So if we have concerns about our children being around coyotes and bears and foxes and Fisher,
we don't
that
have,
may already be a concern.
oh, we don't have a wildlife right now.
Right.
We don't have a wildlife rescue, or you know, I don't eat animals, I'm a Jain, and that's non-violence is our agenda. So
Sure.
in no shape or form can I be against your mission.
Sure.
I'm for your mission.
Sure.
But there are no animals right now that are being attracted, you know, that predators will be attracted to. So that's why I bring this up. Yeah, the ecosystem is very natural right now. There are no extra squirrels being let out. Whatever we have is what there is, just by nature.
Okay, so if maybe there's a written response that you can provide that can address this. Okay, so
New comments.
I think you were on the list here as number 4, maybe?
Yes, I'm Rebecca Meeks. I'm at 1199 North Road. I also am really for your location. Amazing, and what you do. My concern is that you're going from a smaller house in Chelmsford with not much property to all of a sudden a huge property. I'm assuming the expectation is so that you can expand. And you had 700 animals already this year.
No, not this year, it was last year.
Last year. What is your expectation for the amount of animals now that you have 600 acres?
So that would depend on what kind of animals that we had. So if we have a lot of, let's say like we had 80 of the animals that we had last year were just baby mallards. A lot of what we have are baby rabbits, because rabbits take 3 weeks to become adults when people's dogs mess with the nests. So we can get those in and out so fast. So when we say 700 animals, I think we had like 100 of them were rabbits and 80 of them were mallards. So if you consider when we're thinking about the amount of animals that are there. So there are times when we have 100 animals in the facility, but it might be that a lot of them are easy to care for, smaller animals. We have lower numbers when it's larger animals for a lot more care. So it's hard to say exactly how many, but I will say that the 15 vehicles that we noted is with expansion. That is not what we currently have. That is with us considering that there will be more traffic, that we will grow to some degree. But we have the cages listed. So I think we have 11 cages now, and then there we would have how many? But there are cages. So we will expand more, but how many we would take to depend on what the community needed from us.
Yeah, I think my concern is just with the added animals, and I know you've already thought about the traffic. As the mission continues to grow, I mean, if you have 500,000 followers, and like just being a part of, I used to live in Arlington, being part of that community, everybody's like, I have a bunny, I have a this, I have a that, what do I do? Where do I bring them? You know, so I know that there's this huge need, which is like amazing. But I'm just concerned that also having little children who cross the road regularly to visit their friends, is this going to grow massively and take over our road?
That's totally understandable, right? One thing to note is that for our followers, a lot of them aren't in Massachusetts. So there are a lot that are in Massachusetts, but some of them are in Africa, some of them are in different states. We have followers all over the country, all over the world. So it's not that there are 500,000 people in Massachusetts that are dying to come to 1095 Drive. Sure that. So, and when we are full, we are not accepted. So my phone currently rings 150 times per day. And when we are full, we are full. Then we're just educating. Then we're just answering phone calls and saying, hey, sorry, go to mass.gov. There's 180 other wildlife rehabilitators in the state. When it is waterfowl, we really try and accept them just because we're one of 4 that does. So there are times when we do have to turn it off because of the amount of calls that come in. And that's always going to happen. Yes, we are trying to expand. We're trying to have as much wildlife as we can because our wildlife needs it, especially as dense and packed as our state is. I'm talking too much again. I'm sorry and stuff. But I totally understand your concerns.
I think the longevity piece is what I'm the most concerned.
So I think that any changes to the site plan would have to come back through the planning board. So any more enclosures, like it's what they propose is what they're gonna be, what the site plan review approval to the extent it gets approved, that's what they're gonna be looking at. So expansion would require a new site.
And just because I heard about this through neighbors, that this is happening, I mean, how do you reassure me that I'm gonna know that this is gonna happen?
Notices are always published
Where?
in newspaper, in the municipal,
Yeah,
and in the little
Okay.
Yeah.
and they're on the website. So you tune in to.
And there's
See those
a
notices.
butter notification. Yeah, there's sounds like she's not a direct butter, but yeah. Direct butter skip. Okay, who was number 3? Who was number 3 in my counts over here? You remember who was number 3? There's okay.
Okay, my name is Yun Bo Liang, 60 McLean Drive. I highlight two issues. One is big one. But we have been here for 60 years. McAllister is known for a purely residential community. So if whatever the purpose, but this is an institution, then the use, not residential use. That's a big decision, not only for me, for the board, or for everyone.
To be clear, it's not our decision. It's not our decision.
Yeah.
It's a Dover amendment site.
That's a question. No answer today. No answer today. But it's a big decision. Rezoning. Principle change.
So the state mandates that this use be allowed under the Dover Amendment with.
If more and more institution and the use come in, what's the consequence and the impact?
Nothing.
Oh,
It could be a church, it could be a school, the state law says if it's an educational use, we can't, it's not a rezoning. It's an allowed use that has a very limited site plan review approval, where our purview, what we can regulate is very limited. This is not a decision that we're making to rezone the use for this site.
so that's another practical financial is I used to be a financial professional. So what's consequence and impact on our financial value of house? I don't know. I haven't analysis. So, but it matters to everybody. Financial value of a house for everybody. That's it.
Okay, who was number 2? Are you number 2?
I think so.
Okay.
Yes. So my name again is Aileen Bedford, strange name, 150 Old Shot Lane. So on the house price thing, I've got 2 quick points. On the house price thing, I've never visited Newhouse, but I've driven past a couple of times. I swear to God, you wouldn't know it was there. It is incredibly low key. There are not lots of cars going past, and you wouldn't know it's a rescue. So I doubt it's going to affect the price of my house. And then on the educational piece, I think it's really interesting. Although there's not like classes of children coming in or what we think about as education, the rehabbers in Massachusetts do incredible work on education. There was a bill that nearly got through the Massachusetts House on limiting rodenticides, and that was through Mass Audubon, but also through rehabbers in Massachusetts. And it was with incredible groundswell of support. So the educational effects of our rehabbers in Massachusetts is huge. So it can square the circle. It's an educational use. It doesn't have lots of people go and visit. Isn't that incredible for us?
Yeah.
Not lots of cars, also
It ties in with what you just said. I think it's important.
Mary
North
Roberts,
House to
here's your address.
We need your name and address again.
Oh, Mary Roberts, 1119 North Road. And it's important to clearly define your education that and when you say it's an educational facility, what I learned tonight is that's for the education of the highly trained volunteers and people who are rehabilitating the animals. But when it's not made clear, I don't know about any other educators in the room, but I was envisioning busloads of school kids, coming, and I know you say no, but I think it's important to make that really clear that there's a certain type of education on site, and then clearly define what the education is that you do for the general public and for the school public.
Thank you. We have two more online. Sarah is kicking herself for letting me be chair because she would have controlled this much better than I. Catherine Abenessa.
Hi. Yes, Catherine Abenessa. I'm here as a 181 Rutland Street resident in Carlisle, Massachusetts. I'm a supporter of Rajiv and Victoria. I will bring up a point that has not been brought up. I am a deck house owner. As a nonprofit, this investment seems like a frivolous one. With 5 heating zones and 3 oil tanks, the price of oil is killing me as a deck house owner. How, as a nonprofit, are you going to be a healthy nonprofit and continue to do your work with the drain of a deck house? And it's a serious concern. If we're going to be supporting you to go into this property, why a $2 million deck house that is going to be a money pit for a nonprofit? Has that been mapped out for the financial wellness of this organization?
It's not our purview. Thank you very much for your comment. Danny Abernathy.
Thank you, guys. Danny Abernathy, 1173 North Road. I think we're kind of getting closer to the heart of the matter that we can actually discuss with the council. Can the council comment on how this qualifies under the Dover Amendment, which is intended for educational facilities? And I think it was kind of laid bare today that the facility will not operate as an educational center and will not be regularly visited for educational purposes. It almost seems like it's a loophole to get a permit for a home if it's all digital online.
Just to be clear, we have our town council here, and he can spend some time talking about this. But just because you have an image in your head of what an educational facility looks like and sounds like and acts like, doesn't mean that is the limit of what an educational use that is allowed by the Dover Amendment to have a site plan review per Dover Amendment is. It is the applicant's job to demonstrate this is an educational use. They have, to the satisfaction preliminarily of the building inspector and town council. It's not for us to say.
And Madam Chair, it is on all of the written information. So if the abutters would like more information about our educational resources, they can look online in our application. We also supplemented with some daily logs and our additional education students. And we will address some of the other comments in writing that were raised this evening, those raised by the board, and those who have chairs direct us to by the abutters.
We are an hour and 20 minutes over. I will take 2 more. No, I have 2 more hands. Right here.
Yeah, Rajiv and 83 McAllister Drive. And you think because our hands are, the board's hands are tied by the Dover Amendment, you need to understand that everything stand with the Dover Amendment. My understanding, I'm an attorney, but my understanding from the written documentation shared with me is that this is an interim, opinion for information provided by the interim building commissioner in Carlisle, that we don't have a final determination that is pending the final plans from the organization. That's my understanding. But I also heard tonight that the description of the facility is that, and I think looking at all the materials, it's hard to see how this is not a site that will be primarily used for the care of wildlife. That to me is just irrefutable. And it will also have an education benefit. My understanding of the Dover Amendment is that the dominant use of the facility, the premises, not outreach, premises, was to be educational. So I guess the question I have is, when will this final determination be made? Because I presume there are opportunities to look carefully at the basis for that determination.
As you say, it's pending. We
So it may not be government, this may not be a government issue. It's possible that that could not be government. Is that correct?
So what would happen is with advice of town council and an opinion of the building inspector, based on the plan that's been submitted, or the input to the board on whether or not this is an educational facility. And we will ultimately issue a site plan review decision that determines, is this an educational facility or not? If it's not, then we won't approve it, right? So there's a process ahead of us. But I think it's difficult to, you can argue it on both sides, and I think that, the applicant has provided extensive information as to why this is educational.
If I may also say, we have been approved under Dover in Chelmsford and Westford by two separate town attorneys that all looked at all of our information and determined that we were an accurate use for the Dover Amendment. So Carlisle is a third town.
Just a quick question. What legal recourse would we have if we want to dispute this claim of?
So you can appeal the site if there is a decision that's issued that determines that this is an educational use under Dover, then you can appeal the site plan review decision, and then it would go to land court, Superior Court. Thank you. Okay, it is now 9:20. We need to move on. I apologize to the board. We have a lot on our agenda. We will continue this, I assume, and I would like a motion to continue the public hearing for site plan review under blah, 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 to when? So the next regular meeting is August. 17.
Second.
Roll call vote. Who goes first? You go first.
Yeah. Vegas side.
Brady, aye.
Yeshua.
Lennon, aye. But aye. Thank you very much. Okay. Response to.
Thank you so much for your meeting.
You can have the conversation outside in your room. Sorry.
Yep. On this?
Can we have everyone leave the room, please? Curious.
I'm just waiting for the next agenda item. Yeah.
Well, Laura, don't have comments. Sorry. Sorry.
I know.
Don't publish that I lost my temper. Please. Okay. You ask them to actually move outside. No, you cannot close the door. You cannot close the door. Just ask them to move outside, please. Okay, fire station, discussion of the site plan modification.
Give it to Liz. Sorry.
So let's try to quickly get through the fire station discussion of site plan modification. We have with us Josue Valdez. Anybody else?
Yeah. Hello, yeah, I believe it's just me tonight.
Okay, can you walk us through the proposed changes and the reasons for why the changes?
Yes, so I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So, as previously discussed, for the fire station, we already need of a water supply well. Right now, we've gotten determination from DEP that based on the used, um, it it is falls within a private well, not a public well. However, based on the communications we've had with the planning board and the town in the past, we've located the well in a location that down the road, if it needs to be converted to a public well, it could be, avoiding conflicts with, impervious areas and any other public water wells that could make the conversion into a public well pretty much impossible in the future. So having that in mind, that new location up here, which was already there when the project was permitted, at that point in time, it was requested by the board that a access path should be provided for maintenance or any type of future construction for the well. So we are now presenting tonight to show kind of like that new path up to that well. I want to start by saying that this path has not changed any of the limits of work that were previously approved by this board or the Conservation Commission. So we've kept the same limit of work, not additional tree clearing. We actually didn't have to move any side feature necessarily related to the leaching field. All we have to do was make sure that we accommodated the 15 feet wide path from the access drive all the way up there. So this green hashed area, it's the proposed path. It's all pretty much permeable area. So we are not proposing any type of gravel or impervious area for that path. So the idea is that any maintenance vehicle could go here over the mountable curb, get into this grassy area, drive over the septic tanks. We have confirmed that these are concrete tanks and are H20 resistant. So like should be pretty similar to having a manhole or any kind of like stormwater structure in there that could handle these loads. And then as you follow this green path all the way pretty much through the back of the outbuilding, it goes next to the leaching field. For clarification, it does not go on top of the leaching field. The leaching field ends right here where I just draw this line. And we pretty much thread the needle in between the leaching field and the tree clearing, providing that path. And then we kind of like did this grade in here to make sure that we can get access all the way up there. I want to point out that as part of this, to make sure we, any maintenance vehicle or construction vehicles going up there to make them aware of the leaching field, we added these signs here, which we're calling a fluid disposal system area, just to make it clear that, because this is just a grassy pretty much path, just to kind of like call attention to this area to prevent any kind of vehicles to drive over the actual leaching field. So other than that has been pretty much the only change to kind of like fully delineate that path. I know at some point there were discussions about providing that path from Rockland Road, but knowing that that's an scenic road and it will require additional permitting, we came up with this way in which we have confirmed internally and with Conservation Commission We've done some coordination with the planning department and circulated these plans around to make sure that anybody that had a say in this could confirm, at least from a design standpoint or permitting standpoint, there were non-additional permits required. So that's pretty much all I had for tonight. Now I'm open to any questions or comments you may have.
Okay, so just so that we're clear, this path is in response to the request from the board that we plan for a future in which the drinking supply well becomes public. And this would enable the appropriate access to that well for that purpose. Is that right, Julie? Correct. And that's all this is doing.
Including construction, right? Because the private well is located elsewhere.
This is the
That is
the private well.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the well that's being,
Okay, that would need to be upgraded in a
Exactly.
future scenario.
Yep.
So there would be some construction vehicles during that upgrade process and then just maintenance visits. Yeah.
Yes.
Is that right? Sorry.
That's correct. There will be construction vehicles now during construction of the well, and then it will be just maintenance once in a while. And then if the town does decide to convert the well into a public well in the future, then yes, you will have construction vehicles in the future to make the conversion.
So is that plus the signs to tell construction vehicles not to drive over the leaching field?
Yes, that's why we put those signs in there.
and the landscaping at that corner that we were so careful to pay attention to has been adjusted just to the
Nope.
extent that allows for.
We didn't move the landscaping. We were able to tread the needle. Like we already had that area pretty
Okay.
much with no landscaping to prevent any pretty much conflict with the septic tanks. What we had to do was the homework to make sure that the tanks will actually take the load.
Okay. And in terms of drainage, does this, it's not a low spot, so it's not gonna collect water there and become muddy so that trucks would sink in, right?
No, this is not changing at all the drainage pattern, and it will not be shouldn't be like I said, we didn't really change the drainage pattern as part of this. So no, we are not expecting any kind of puddles or anything like that there.
Okay, does the board have any questions?
Yeah, I do. So we had talked about, and I know you mentioned permitting for the, if you can scroll to the left, where we talked about putting the road to the left of the leaching field.
Yep.
So if I'm hearing this right, the only, well, maybe not the only, but it's because you'd have to apply for a permit to remove if there's an existing stone wall there for the scenic road, to get the road on the left side of the septic field, right?
Yeah, that's part of it, with all the coordination and time that will come from that. Yeah.
It just seems like, I mean, I would not be adverse to that personally, and that's just me speaking, not for the board. It seems like a lot of extra road here to provide that functionality, and it's beyond just the possibility of a public well being installed here. At some point, this well will need maintenance, and the truck will need to get back there, whether it's private or public. I just think that the access from Rockland Road is a more direct route and less impactful on the rest of the site than this circuitous route through the garage and the field and all the other stuff. It just seems like a lot of work for not much gain here.
I want to add that this is just some kind of like low planted meadow grass in there, the grass path. So like it's not really adding a cost per se to the construction. It's not really it is a longer path, but it should not have a impact on the actual construction cost of the project.
No, but long-term, that path will have to be maintained to a certain extent to get something back there. In addition, by the garage, you're showing trees there that are overlapping the proposed route. And I assume, I'm not sure how high those trees will be, whatever it is, but if the branches are low enough, a truck will not be able to get through there with the larger tree that's encompassing most of that path, and then the other trees that are along the route there. So I question what the vegetation outlook is going to be like in 20 years when these things are fully developed. Does that block the route?
These are pretty large trees that, as long as those limbs are maintained every once in a while, like you will do in a regular backyard, or you will do for any kind of like trees that you have on the street. So they
Yeah,
don't
no,
actually.
yeah, the utility work would necessitate that, but this, I don't see that being pruned or taken care of because there's no need for it. Unless you're doing it for this specific purpose, and then that changes the view of what other board members have been concerned about with the landscaping facing this outbuilding.
Do we know what that tree species is and its growth pattern?
Yeah, this is the same as, so this is the QPR2. So these are the,
It's a pin oak.
where is it? Yeah, pink oak, yep. And the other one is the red maple. Those are the ones that we are proposing in that area.
So I'm not a landscape architect and I don't have a feel for what that looks like over time, but I see that as being possibly problematic with this. And again, I'll go back to the simplified route to the left of this that seems to be a more prudent path than this.
Can you speak to the rationale for why the Rockland Road route was abandoned in favor of this one?
I mean, it's basically what you said. I think that given the scenic road and then also there's the reach, it's a lot. It feels like you're on Rockland Road actually quite a bit more. I will say though, I think this even. I was actually just talking about he's only coming today. So serving these things in the field can be really helpful.
But to clarify, the path that's shown here going up from between the disposal field and where the well is, that work would have to be done anyways in order to support the pipe connection.
Yes.
So it's not like that path would be there in any case. Whereas if there were the access up, that would be additional removal of existing trees in order to create a second route to get to the well.
Yeah.
Yes, and it will require additional clearing to make sure that we miss the leaching field probably.
Well, you're going to be digging in there anyway for electric lines and water lines. You're disturbing that area regardless.
Yes, the only difference is that this becomes pretty steep here, existing grades, so we will have to regrade that. So this limit of work will definitely be expanded a little bit to be able to accommodate that path, pretty much. Yeah. It's not a lot, but yeah, it will affect slightly the limit of work there. Plus, it will fully clear another portion here that now you can, if you're driving down your scenic road, now you're gonna have that drive. So you're gonna have like a 15-25 wide drive that you can actually see in, because you won't be able to screen it out.
Well, I mean, I view this like a lot of other access gates that you see in properties out throughout Carlisle, where there are people that have access points to the back of their property just for reasons like this, where you'll see a gate and it's a small path, maybe 10-15 feet wide, and it's not a fully formed driveway to get back there. Anyway, that's just my opinion. I think there's a better way for the long term to do this.
Sorry,
Just like to Joe's point, is there the ability to adjust the location of, looks like there's two trees that are close to the path of the vehicle? Could those be slightly adjusted to get greater room for those trees?
We could try, but at this point, it will be a domino effect. On the sense, what do I mean is that these trees will have to push up, so it will get a little bit more faster right next to the building. This one can't really move much to the left because it will fall on top of the drainage line, so it will mean more than that. I want to point out that these are, when fully mature, like these are pretty large trees. So as long as every couple of years some of those limbs, the lowest one, are being cut, this is not like a yearly type of maintenance. This is probably like every 2 or 3 years you cut some of the smaller limbs to make sure you have, I don't know, 15-foot
average
clearance or
truck height
something.
being 10, 11 feet high, right? They bring something back that big that's got a rig in the back of it for pulling pipe or replacing a pump or whatever it may be. That will eventually be needed because the pump that goes back there for the private well is not going to last 20 years or 30 years. It may, but there's a good chance it's going to have to be changed out.
Yeah. Again, like I said, these red maples are fully mature 25 feet, easy. So like you cutting some of the limbs up to 10, 12 feet, like that's pretty common. Like I have it on my back to make sure that people can walk underneath it. But I'll defer to the board on that. But that was the approach that we thought. We don't think is a like a like a big maintenance thing that will require significant maintenance. Like these limbs take a good chunk of time to actually grow and become bigger. But that was our thought process, that because this was already there, this was already clear because we have the septic tank and the utility lines, so we can't really plant anything on top of that. We were like, okay, so if we already have that and it's wide enough and we can provide a path just by providing every couple of years a little bit of tree clipping, if you want to call it so, without increasing the cost of the project or adding additional permitting to the project that will result in additional costs, then we thought it was a solution that provided what was needed. That is the path up there, and it wouldn't really put any additional complications, delays, or cost into the project. That's kind of the approach we took.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're getting at. I don't think the delay for the approval of modifying the scenic road for that would be a source on the critical path of this project. And again, my personal opinion is I would prefer to see it to the left of the septic field for a direct, more easier route that's not circuitous through this alignment here. Just seems like and I know you're not building a road and it's not that, but it still needs to be clear to the point that something can navigate it. And you're going over the electrical boxes, the distribution boxes, or whatever else is there, plus it's not on the field per se, but all that can be avoided if it's to the left of the septic field, and all those complications go away. Tree trimming, loads, etc. Except for the roadway that have to be established with it's only probably 2 feet. Angle of natural repose should be more than enough to stabilize something getting through there.
Okay,
anyway,
so
that's just my opinion. I won't go any more into it.
Thanks, Joe. Julie, can we condition or add a condition to the site plan approval that says this needs to be maintained and the trees need to be maintained?
Right, so you did retain the right in your decision, it says here, you shall never vote amendments. Planning board shall reserve the right to modify or amend its approval of this site plan according to section 7. So yes, you can.
Okay. So our options here are to, one, approve this with a condition that says you gotta maintain it and you gotta make sure the trees allow for easy access, or not approve it and ask that there be a path on, coming off of Rockland Road. Per Joe's suggestion. So I think we just vote. I'll take a motion for one or the other and we'll vote it out. Sorry, I was.
If I may, I won't speak for the entire team, but based on my knowledge about the project and from talking to other members of the team, I will be surprised if anybody on the design team and or from the building committee will be opposed to just adding maintaining that path to be accessible. If the other option is to provide the access from Rockland Road. That would be my take. The other thing I want to point out, we are being proactive, especially because the town has been, and by the town I mean the planning board, board of health. You are all thinking for the future and thinking, what if this needs to be converted? However, there is a chance that this might never get converted. Like you might, it's not a guarantee that it will be converted. So this might be a path that is used once in a while.
Joe's concern is also just about the maintenance of the private well using this path. So I think we just need to vote it out.
Yep.
So I'd like to make a motion either way.
I'll make a motion to move the path to Rockland Road as discussed.
Do they have a second?
I'll second it so that we can vote.
Okay, roll call vote starting with Dwight.
Nay, is it no?
Nay. Nay.
Nay.
I guess nay.
Brady, nay.
Yeshua.
London, nay. Smith, nay. Motion fails. Okay, I'll take a motion to approve, unless there's further discussion on, okay. Motion to approve the path as proposed with the modification to the site plan approval to require maintenance for truck access.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Okay.
Vegas, aye.
Brady, aye.
Yeshua, nay.
Lennon, aye. Bye-bye. Motion carries. Sorry, Joe. Okay. Moving on to, we're done with this discussion. You're done with this discussion. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no, thank you all.
Moving on to, do we have the folks from for the Diamond Park?
That'd be me, and I believe I still have our designers. I think. So yes, yeah. So I'm Sarah Wenger, and then I have Sarah Brunel and I think Jasmine Pedeno here as well. I'm Sarah Wenger. I am a member of the Recreation Commission and the chair of the Diamond Park Subcommittee. We spoke to you guys once before a while ago about renovating Diamond Park. Just to give you a brief, right? I know we're running way late. Diamond Park is the top lot in town that is not seeing significant changes in many, many years. It was originally put in 1983, I believe, with significant changes in 1999, and then really hasn't seen a lot since then. There's been a couple more things that have changed a little bit. Sarah was wondering if yeah. And there's a lot of maintenance issues. There's a lot of safety issues, and we secured funding through CPA last year to do a design. And that's what we're in the process of working with Lula Design Studios to create a design. A big part of our process has been trying to figure out parking because this is a very, very inaccessible spot right now, which is a big thing that we want to fix and also want to fix is making this a much more accessible park for everyone, both children and adults that have accessibility
needs as well. What else did I want to say in the introduction? I think that's really it. I think basically what we're here today is to sort of let you guys, show you guys where we're at so far and get any feedback that you have for our sort of final design process that we are moving forward with. Trying to have sort of final design in their early fall to then ideally do a site plan review with you all to then apply for CPA funding in this next cycle for the town meeting in 2027. And then ideally, the goal would be to start construction immediately thereafter in the summer of 2027. So give you guys an idea of that. And so then I will introduce Sarah Brunel, who should be on Zoom here.
Yes, she is. So Sarah and Delphine are able to share.
Okay.
Information.
You're Sarah. She asked if they can turn on your video for video.
Yeah, she's got it.
She said you. Oh, there you go. I see you there. I don't
You're
hear
on
you,
mute.
Sarah. You're
You're on
muted.
mute.
Great. Hi, I'm Sarah Brunel. Hasmin Cedeno is also here. Her computer is called Dell. She's named as Dell. Hi, everyone. Thank you. And thanks for the introduction, Sarah. So we're just going to walk you through our process. A lot of it has to do with parking, as Sarah said. Just to contextualize the site, it's extremely sloped and it is on Church Street, which is it's a hill. There's currently parking on the street, but there is no sidewalk. And currently there are 2 accessible spots right here. This is what I don't know if you're familiar with it, but if you are not, it is kind of a tiny park. I think what's significant about it is that there is a lot of really great trees, but also part of the park is that it's on a very steep slope and there is very limited flat space. And so the challenge of that is that we have the desire to make an accessible area out of a pretty tricky spot. And we want to do so with saving as many of the trees as possible, especially some of these like larger oaks and ashes that are on the site. So one of the trees we're going to be talking a lot about today is this oak tree that is right at this kind of flat area at the corner of the street. You'll see this a lot in our presentation. So I'm going to just put you here on the site plan. We have that tree is right here. And the photos that I was just showing you is essentially this flat area here. In our initial grading studies, what we want to do is sort of expand the extent of the park by creating an accessible sloped walk. So this would be a 5% walk that gets you up to the highest part of the site. This can be done. It's happily it can be done, and it can be done with grading that doesn't disturb a lot of our biggest trees. So this is kind of the proposal of how that slope would work, and how we propose to plateau some of these sites and engage a accessible pathway. What we're finding tricky is doing the same with parking. So bringing parking into the site in the most kind of advantageous to the site way would require us basically to come in at this aperture here, which is the flattest part of the site. And here's our oak tree. When we did our initial studies, we saw that we could bring 2 spaces in on the corner where that tree and the flattest area is. This one in green was sort of the most desired out of the 4 by the committee. The benefits is that it maximizes the open space on the property. However, it removes existing on-site parking or street parking. It requires tree removal. And because it's such a steep slope, it is very costly because it requires retaining walls, curbs, and guardrails. But this is what it looks like when you connect it to that accessible path. It's above this ball field. We went on to do more. This is sort of the play kind of idea on that site. We went on to do some more parking studies that allow us to create an accessible space, but retain the tree in that flattest part of the site. We went with this T-bone parking with one stall. But the major drawback, it has a lot of retaining features, guardrails, curbs. It retains the tree, but the drawback is that it takes up most of the open flat site space of the site, which is obviously a major bummer. This is what it looks like when you connect it to the path. So we have a very minimal space, and our worry is that the space itself at the end of the slope is very, very close for this kind of toddler, young child age range to the parking itself.
And just like the benefit of that parking is just one car, so.
That's right. So it's minimized into one car. So it's a lot of infrastructure. It requires a turnaround for one car. So we realized inside of while we were doing these parking studies that Niche Engineering is actually working on a streetscape plan on Church Street that is right adjacent to Diamond Park, our site. Dimond Park, excuse me. What they have realized is that because of the slope of the street, that we can do a PROAG accessible parking option, which basically means that we bring accessibility into the park, but we can retain a sloped parking space and still meet ADA criteria. So that basically looks like this accessible parking option 1, which parks on the street and brings an accessible walkway, if you can see my cursor, with an accessible curb cut into a parking space on the street. Another option is
just can you just explain what PROAG means?
So when you have an area that is just naturally a hill or a slope, rather than requiring you to create a 2% or a flat parking space, because it's essentially impossible, like we're proposing 4-foot walls and guardrails, that getting accessible, that parking can be on a slope as long as it has an accessible entrance. So it's still ADA, but your parking itself, you can park on the slope and then come into an accessible curb cut. So that would be this option. The other option is to take an accessible space at the bottom here and create an accessible ramp. So that is a 12% ramp that would have guardrails up and around the backstop here and into the park. I would say that both are ADA accessible. One with this ramp would be much more expensive than the one without the ramp.
You said 12%, I think 1 in 12. Is that right?
12, yeah. So an accessible walk would be 5%. So this is that accessible walk, which is kind of moving. We don't have to have
guardrails.
Sorry, it's late. So handrails. And a ramp. This ramp is 12%. It kind of stops and goes, and it requires handrails on both sides. So the site itself with this accessible walk is accessible. The parking would be on the street with an ADA curb cut. In this option, we would be taking a flat space down here, which already exists, and bringing you up on a 12% ramp to the 5% walkway. Our scope of work is inside of here. So I'm not an expert on ProAg parking at all. I'm not a civil engineer. I'm a landscape architect. So our work is to design this site. But my understanding from the call with Niche Engineering, who is doing the streetscape, is that these ProAg options are their proposal for the site. So with that in mind, when we look at the ProAg options with our street parking, adjacent parking, we kind of collapse both of these in this diagram. So there's the curb cut. Oh, well, not in this diagram, but the curb cut and the ramp. What it allows us to do is use the entire site as our play space. The site is quite small. But what it looks like is a circulation plan that is absolutely accessible, that does have kind of a stairs that get you up and through and can connect you to the tennis court above. And that we are also able to use this kind of slope as a playful element. We're working with the committee to look at how that 5% slope is actually not only a walkway, but is also seating, that also is a stage, and it also frames a lot of our other play elements. It could also be a kind of climbing scramble. We played some games and talked about what we wanted in the site. And when our last iteration is that we landed on a natural playscape that sort of engages height with steppers and boulders and sort of playful stairs, and that we're going for a kind of theme of burrowing because we have that kind of S walkway through. So these were some of the preferred play elements, and some of the kind of furnishings that we're looking at. So at this point, this is where we're at. We just wanted to show you our process and make sure that the committee, as we move forward with our proposal, knows that we've sort of exhaustively studied every parking and ADA option that could be on this tiny slope site. And that obviously our preference is to pull parking onto the street, and that we would collaborate with Niche to make sure that accessibility option is connected into the park itself.
And one thing I would just add with the collaboration with Niche is that unfortunately, we don't actually know yet if that ramp is possible because it was outside of our initial survey area that we did, but they are currently or just finished surveying the entire road and area to basically see if that accessible ramp really is possible to fit in there. It's fairly tight behind that backstop, which is a historic backstop that we're also have funding to rehabilitate right now. So we're not touching that backstop.
Okay, so two questions.
Yeah.
One, just to clarify. One is, under what contract is Niche studying this work?
Who's under the Complete Streets program, I believe.
And so that's what, the safety committee?
And the select board.
And the select board. Okay. And then second clarifying question is there something that requires you to provide accessible parking for a project like this? Is there some outside force that requires that?
My understanding was that it was required in order to create a new playground or an updated playground. But I don't actually know who that person would be other than I think the state, or actually my understanding was that we wouldn't receive like a building permit for it unless we could explain sort of the accessibility of it and the parking associated.
Yeah, I think that's correct. If it's an existing facility that doesn't have compliant parking, but it's an existing facility, then it can remain. So if there's an improvement to it that's over a certain threshold amount, then it has to be upgraded to provide some accessible thing. But I do have a question about that accessible route. Could you go back to alternative one? For the ProAg?
Can you zoom in on it maybe?
We have
Seems
this
like
one.
alternative one is a lesser intrusive.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so the alternative one is definitely a lesson. How I've been thinking about it is like, alternative one is definitely less intrusive. However, there's more slope. So I'm trying to reach out to the CPAC at the school to talk to them about sort of, as I fortunately don't have a child in a wheelchair. I don't know whether it really sort of the importance of not being on a slope. So because it is a significant slope there, there's 2 cars on the road.
Yeah.
But I think our preference would be to do option 1. And then we still do have that accessible parking that's level down on Spalding. That's the one that's the other direction. There's currently 2 spots there. And then they would be able to use the sidewalk, which is accessible for sidewalk standards, which does not need to conform. I think they probably through the same PROAG guidelines does not need to conform to that 1 in 12 rating or.
So Dwight, are you in agreement that, given your professional expertise, that the slope, so the access from the car to the sidewalk or to the accessible ramp doesn't need to be accessible?
There are exceptions for existing conditions. Like you can't make San Francisco accessible. It's just inherently not. And you can't, the ADA allows for there to be acceptance based on those existing conditions. And I think what you're saying is that this is one of those conditions.
Yeah, we can't level the road.
Where we can't level the road, we can't move the road, we can't move the park. So inherently, there's an exception that's allowed for this based on specific site conditions that are good. And as long as the accommodation is made to provide as accessible as it is possible, then you're compliant.
Okay, that's very helpful to get a double to verify that. That's yes.
So I guess then my follow-on question to that is, it feels like that PROAG access would be better on the other side of the tree. Because I think is it less steep on the other side of the tree, or like on where the blue cars? Yeah, right.
I think it's actually steeper.
Oh, is it steeper? Okay.
So the grade actually goes up there more, is my understanding.
Okay.
I think we could try to, I don't know if you could bring the survey back up, but there's
Hasmin,
would you up there.
It is steeper, yes, and we wouldn't have like the access to the flat spaces in the bottom.
Because this is sort of our flattest area. So this is very, very steep up here.
And also like we have like the flattest area for the parking in here. So we wanted to take advantage of that lower area as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I'm also curious, just like parking aside, also, if there's any, I mean, we are obviously working on more of the details of the design. If there are any comments you have on like the park design or things that we need to take into account, we would love to hear them, but I also don't want to take too much of your time right now. So
It seems like there's not, I mean, I think it's a great idea to sort of have the path that doesn't actually have to be a ramp, which is nice. It's just hard to comment too much without like the full design.
Okay.
But I think and I would agree that the first option there, if it's compliant,
it's a lot better.
It's a whole lot better and a whole lot less work and probably close. You're closer to the park, so
okay, great.
I personally like the selection of play equipment we have, which look like were natural features. I'm not sure exactly what they are, but it look like sort of colorful plastic, shiny stuff that look like more things that resemble wood and rocks.
We're trying to sort of stay in the feel of Carlisle more, and sort of it's in the trees. We are ending up going to have to take out a fair number of trees because there's a lot of really big split pines or pines that are so those ones are going to have to come out, but other than that, we're really trying to save all of the hardwood species. And it's like, it is a significant slope, so utilizing that slope down, I think it's going to be very fun and interesting, so.
Okay, comments from members of the public?
Thank you, Christina Christopoulos, Hemlock Hill Road.
You're aware that there's a municipal landscaping policy?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, which is in terms of planting natives and all that?
Correct, yes, yeah, it's not for play areas,
surface.
yeah, surfaces, but yeah,
There's like
actual landscaping.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Any other comments from the public? Okay, well, there's nothing to vote on here, so, great work and.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I know that historical commission is here, or members of the historical commission are here to talk to us about their proposed demo review bylaw. And I recognize that we have the Defoe's here to talk to us about the West Street Conservation Cluster Special Permit. What we do?
I don't know. You got people waiting on Zoom.
Yes. I think we can maybe be quick on the West Street Conservation Cluster special permit because it's, I think the question is, are we open to an alternative to what the permit currently requires? And if we are open to that, there's more work that needs to be done. So I think the, yes, the supposed
Yeah,
to just speak briefly about what your proposed alternative is.
Yes, so, yes, the performance bond. So we were looking for the board to grant us to hold lot 2 for the performance bond, for the driveway. And come to kind of find out is that the board is actually holding each and every lot on this project. Thank you. So my intentions of building this road and everything else, I'm not looking for a building permit until the road is into binder. So the bridge is in, because that's my wetland crossing. And that I have my first coat of the asphalt down binder. So I'm just looking for the board to agree to holding lot 2. We've discussed lot 1 because I'm gonna work from lot 6 all the way out back to West Street. So that's what I'm looking.
And so what the approval requires, what the decision requires right now is a performance bond for what?
So for the roadway and the improvements that are associated with the road, right? So none of the work that we haven't bought.
But the performance bond goes into place at what point?
Basically, what he was mentioning at the beginning is that the decision also requires that they have a covenant and an overarching covenant state, right? Which then requires that they seek a lot release once they put in the improvements, right? That they actually file a paper that seeks a lot release from the building commissioner, which usually the planning board has to agree to, right? So they do a certain amount of work before you could get a building permit on a lot. So that's one piece, and then there's the second piece, which is the surety, which the most common form of surety that I've seen is the tri-party agreement, which is between the developer, town, and bank, right? And the developer figures out, what it will cost to do the roadway and all the utilities to kind of get the lots ready for building, right? And then the town engineer usually, or a third-party engineer, runs it for an escalator or prevailing wage, right? And then some number gets agreed, and then that's the number that the bank puts into the tri-party agreement.
But just to be clear, because the decision requires that the road be in before a building permit is pulled for a single lot.
So I wanted to just look and see.
It does.
Yes.
Then the performance bond really just be for what remains of the work at that point.
Right, so the bond amount can get reduced, right? And that's usually another thing that the applicant has to come back to the board. And the third party engineer agrees, yes, the work's been done, the bond amount, but the council will be reduced, right?
Right, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that the, but, the bond doesn't need to be in place until he goes to seek a building permit. And by the time he goes to seek a building permit, the road will be in, and therefore the remaining work at that point is completion.
And we all know that house lot in Carlisle is 500 to 650,000 roughly. You know, well, that's what they're going prices. So to hold a lot is substantial.
Okay, so the question for the board then is, are we open to an alternative? We're not gonna make the decision on what the alternative is tonight. Are we open to an alternative? Or do we want to keep this decision as written?
What additional risk or do we undertake by modifying this?
The risk is that he doesn't complete and he disappears. And we've got one lot that we can then sell to complete.
What was the alternative? What was the alternative?
The lot, the holding of the lot. Meaning instead of
No,
there
no.
being a bond or some kind of surety for the
Which
the
is what's
cost of
current
the
in
work,
place, is
which
the
is
bond.
what the current decision requires a bond or a surety.
Oh,
in
okay,
place.
okay, those are the two. Okay.
So are we open to the alternative of holding a lot or some other form of protection that if it doesn't finish and he disappears, that we can do something to raise enough money to complete? Or do we want to hold the surety so that if he doesn't complete it, disappears, we just go to the bank?
I mean, that seems less risky to me.
It is less risky. But I think his argument is that the lot is probably worth more than what the surety would be.
Just the process to liquidate it and
Yeah.
then and you know, the town or one other property owner has it's kind of the odd situation in that.
I would say though, like the road has to be completed for us to build. To use this almost like that.
To the binder course. To the binder.
To the binder. And we worked, I mean, he's been in the town now for many years. It's not like, we've been here for many years. Continuing.
So are we open to an alternative or do we want to keep the way it's?
I think I'm open to all.
Okay, I'll take a motion to
So yeah, so you're voting on and working with John and I to hammer out what the alternatives are actually.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that's like tricky is that technically under your conservation cluster regulations, any change to your decision requires. Yeah. The only thing you can do administratively, literally it says this in the conditions, is fix cycles.
It seems like it's less risk to you, but just be sure.
Yeah.
What, do the tri-party bond? Is that?
Yeah, for just the binder, for just the finished course, that's all you're gonna have to bond.
Yeah, I mean, I know, it's fine. It's fine. That's over, you know. That's what you guys want, then that's, you know, it's just. The lot's there.
Do you
It's
want
not
to do you want to reopen the public hearing?
No. No, I didn't know.
Did you see the public hearing earlier?
Yeah. Don't want to go through that again. No,
Would be your fate.
yeah, yeah.
And the other question, just, I know I wrote it too, was, it seems like the language, to my understanding, is that this has to be registered with registry of deeds before you reach lots.
Special permit should have been recorded years ago, yeah.
Oh, that
This
recording.
document.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I thought that the conclusion of the road had to be deeded, and we can't keep the road,
No,
had
no,
to be deeded before we.
Yeah, no, there's just like some terminology.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's
I
okay, no
misunderstood.
problem. Yeah, we see.
Okay,
Why don't we meet and hammer this out with
That's-
John? Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay.
Awesome. Guys, have a great night.
Thank you. Sorry for the long
No,
wait.
no. I feel for you guys.
Take care. Okay. Let's move on to the Historical Commission. I deeply apologize for the hour and 20-minute delay.
We make them so we should talk back.
It's there.
Yes, they're still here. Yeah, we Chrissy and Ben. Sarah.
Oh, good evening. Can you hear us?
We can.
Yes.
Great. Ben Herder, co-chair of the Historical Commission. For those who I have not met, Chrissy O'Shea, co-chair, is also on the line here.
Hi, everyone.
So we recognize what time it is, and so we'll try to be brief, but thank you for the opportunity to discuss the demolition review bylaw with you guys again tonight. We have a short slideshow that we would like to share with you. And so if I have the ability to do that, I will right now. Okay. Everybody seeing that?
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Demolition review bylaw, I think the last time that we spoke as the Historical Commission with the Planning Board was back in March of 25. So it's been a little while since we've talked. In that time, we've been meeting with other boards and commissions. We've been doing a lot of outreach and getting a lot of feedback, and we have been refining the parameters of the bylaw. And so the purpose of us being here tonight is really to re-engage with you. We're hoping for planning board support for the demolition review bylaw. The plan is to bring this bylaw to town meeting this coming November. So just to open, Carlisle is a town that will continue to evolve. As we all know, homes will be renovated, expanded, relocated, and in some cases replaced. But the question is not whether change should occur, but whether we want a process that allows the community and homeowners to consider the impact before historically or architecturally significant buildings are permanently lost. Oops, apologies. So where we are today, there are only 52 buildings that are protected in town, and those are the buildings that are inside of the historic district or in the town center. We have 2 buildings that are on the National Register and that are outside of the district, but we have nearly 700 buildings over 50 years old that have no review process. And so we find that Carlisle's identity is not just defined by the colonial era houses in town, which we have many, but also the mid-century architecture that is represented all across town. So again, it's, the bylaw here is not about preventing change. It's about creating a pathway for change in a thoughtful way and preserving Carlisle character. It is also worth noting that Carlisle has a noted interest in historic preservation, which is outlined in the master plan. Chrissy, do you want to take this one?
Yep, sorry, I was on mute. So you may remember when we presented last time, we had come out with a set of parameters for the bylaw that were recommended by the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And so we used their recommendations as sort of a template while we were collecting data from residents, various boards and committees, various members of town offices. And we have refined the bylaw to be more specific to the needs and wants of the town of Carlisle, because again, this very much is a tool for the toolkit of the town for its consideration of preservation as time marches on. So the original proposal had the length of the demolition review period at 18 months, and we have scaled that back to 12. And the other probably biggest change is that the nationally accepted standard for historic preservation is a 50-year rolling clock. And so when we started, that's what we started with. But we have since, again, after collecting that feedback and that data from the town, set this as a fixed date of a pre-1970 build. So a house or structure that was built before 1970 would trigger a review period, or sorry, not a review period, just a review of the historical significance of the structure. So those are the two largest changes, I think, since we met with you last. We have also added a predetermination of historical significance. This is very much about giving the applicant an ability to understand whether or not their structure would be deemed significant. And then that conversation would be good for 5 years. So that predetermination, again, is sort of a way to open the conversation between the applicant and the historical commission and the town. We've also refined the intents and purposes section of the bylaw to, again, better reflect some of the needs, as Ben just mentioned, like the master plan outline, some of the feedback that was collected during the review by the Horsley-Witten group. And we've also incorporated some language to better identify the number of options that are possible along with demolition, but also things like restoration or documentation, relocation. So some of those options are sort of outlined more clearly in the bylaw than they were previously. And at the after a conversation that we've had with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Core Committee, we've also incorporated some language suggestions from them into the bylaw, mostly centering around the idea of embodied carbon in currently existing structures, and adding some clarity to the bylaw about deconstruction and some of the options for selective dismantling of a building that would be available to a homeowner or applicant through this process. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of how we've evolved. And I also want to highlight for clarity, there are sort of dispel some myths about what the bylaw does not do. I'm not going to read these for you guys because I know you can all do that yourself, but I think that, you know, the thing that we really want to reiterate here is that this bylaw is a mechanism for the town to have a conversation about historic preservation and about the outlook that we want for the town moving forward, and that this is just a tool for the town to have this conversation. It's not sort of the end all be all here. So the bylaw can provide a temporary pause to demolition long enough for the town to have a conversation with the applicant about that proposed project. And, you know, there's no requirement for the homeowner to restore the building necessarily. That is certainly an option available to them. But again, as I said, you know, we've really made an effort to highlight some of those alternative pathways to demolition, preservation, rehabilitation, restoration. And I think the other thing that we just wanted to touch on here quickly is that the Historical Commission is a facilitator for the town to have this conversation, on behalf of the town. we've really made an effort to make this a two-step process to allow the town to participate and allow for public engagement as much as possible at both the initial historical determination step and the question of whether or not the structure will be preferably preserved. So, you know, the Historical Commission sees the role here as being able to help explore alternatives, connect the applicants with resources, and also to document some of the important structures in town. So we've compiled a flow chart here just to attempt to give people another way to understand the bylaw, so that, you know, if they have read through the language and it's still not clear, or they'd rather kind of work through it on a visual level. So again, this highlights that addition of the predetermination here in that first box, which is, while it's directly connected to the bylaw, it's something that can occur before an applicant even submits their demolition application to the building inspector. And then this kind of hopefully clearly outlines the steps that the bylaw would take. And again, just to reiterate, we've shifted the timeline to be a pre-1970 building or structure, and also reduced the length of time that demolition review period could potentially be open for. We have a couple more slides, but I also, want to be conscious of the time. So if people have questions for us or want to open the discussion, we're happy to do that now, if that's helpful.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board?
Why 1970?
That is a great question.
Great question. We have a slide for that. 1970 really represents kind of the culmination, I guess, of one of Carlisle's more robust periods of development in town. So this is a bar chart showing over time from 1900 to today, when all the development was happening in town. And so between 1960 and 1969, there was a lot happening in town. And this is also kind of centered around the 1962 zoning change as well. And so that was something that we felt was notable. And it is representative in the character of the town at this point in time. And through that period, 1960 to 1969, as you all know, there were a lot of deck homes built, a lot of warehouses built, and other mid-century buildings built, but generally in the form of building neighborhoods. So they were creating communities and creating an aesthetic in different pockets of town.
Thanks.
I have a question. Do you have sort of objective standards for what renders a property historically significant and preferably preserved?
We do. So at the kind of core of that, there is a set of standards that are outlined at the national level. And that's sort of what's used as the accepted standard for that determination in the field of historic preservation. It's also what the Massachusetts Historical used for outlining their bylaw language. And there was a request in the feedback portion for this bylaw from the town to sort of illuminate as clearly as possible what that process is and what it looks like. So we created sort of an appendix to the bylaw that exists if anyone would like to go and read through it on our on the Historical Commission's homepage on the town website to hopefully bring some more clarity to that understanding. But the best way that I can describe the determination for historical significance is that it is a matrix of decision making. There's no one thing that you can point to for a home or structure that will determine its historical significance, but rather it's a relationship and a matrix for how it's sort of situated in the history of the town, in the history of architecture. So I think all of those things are what would be used to inform a decision of that nature. And then I think there are other considerations for determining the preferably preserved, similarly using the same standards for the historical significance. A lot of towns actually lump the process into two, but what we felt when we were crafting the bylaws that diminishes the ability for the town to be part of the conversation, and it diminishes the public participation option. So splitting those two determinations into two separate hearings doesn't actually add that much to the timeline of this process, but it does afford people a better ability to have a conversation about the future of the town and about the thoughtful development of the town.
So in the draft bylaw that I was looking at, it looked like there were 4 criteria to determine historical significance. Am I misunderstanding something?
No.
I think I could say there's no one thing, but I thought I saw a list of 4 things.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is the matrix. Those 4 things are used sort of in conjunction. So it might be that it's on the National Register and that has its own set of criteria for, that is obviously an accepted standard for preservation. And then whether or not it's sort of on the state MACRIS list is another one. I guess the other part of the matrix is, if the structure is not on any of those, how do we then determine that it's a historically significant structure in town? And so then we would use those standards to make that decision. I'm going to see if I can pull up the list that we have on the town website as well. Or Ben, actually, you're sharing your screen, so that might be helpful.
There's so 19.2.1.10.3 and 4 are maybe where there's less objectivity, right? It's importantly associated with one or more historic persons or events as determined by the Historical Commission, right? Historically or architecturally important, either by itself or in a context of group of buildings, and that's as determined by the Historical Commission, right?
Potentially, but not necessarily. I mean, some of the established historical significance is through the national standards of what is accepted, or through some of the state guidelines.
Just trying to pull up that checklist.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, so it sounds like if it's already listed, MACRIS or on the National Register, historical significance. Yeah. So it's the other 2 that I think Addie's asking about, right? Like who's deciding that the building is associated with historic persons or events, or the building is historically or architecturally important.
Yes, the ultimate decision would lie with the Historical Commission, but there are some guidelines and guardrails for that determination. Again, that come down from what's outlined on.
Is that something you
Sorry.
can provide to us? Just like what
Yeah.
those guidelines and guardrails are on that?
Yes. This is what we've compiled because we've had this question before. And so we're hopeful that this checklist for historical significance provides some more clarity for that decision.
It's linked. On historical oh, it's just not in our. It's not. No, but I think yeah.
Am I sharing this, by the way? Is this being seen?
Yes.
Okay. This is right on the Historical Commission website, and we're happy to send it around to the planning board if that would be helpful. But to Chrissy's point, we're hoping that this kind of appendix will help clarify this part in the process for homeowners, applicants.
So does the applicant fill this form out and then the historical commission verifies it or agrees with it?
I'm sorry, is that you, Julie?
Yeah, sorry.
What was your question?
Does the applicant fill out this form initially and then the historical commission reviews it and kind of like adds what you know or agrees or like if an applicant or a homeowner doesn't know some of the history of their property, like you do, or I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it's the opening to a conversation. Sorry, Julie, were you done?
Yeah.
Didn't mean to cut you off. I think it's the opening to a conversation. We hadn't really crafted it in a way that it was necessarily a form, though that's an interesting idea to kind of, to submit this to the Historical Commission. But if they don't know, then it's a great opportunity to speak with the Historical Commission before applying. So
yeah, I guess in the checklist here, it's item 4, where there's still feels like there's subjectivity, embody distinctive characteristics. A 1950s cape is a distinctively 1950s cape, but is it going to be determined that that's a significant enough to be preserved? So that's my concern. Just lies in the subjectivity.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a 1971 deck house.
So Addie, I think that goes back to what I was saying about the matrix. The determination would never be made on just that one question. It would then be, okay, so it checks that box. So we move down to, does it then have these other reference points? So it wouldn't just be, okay, it is a 1950 post-war cape. Check, it's historically significant and we're going to move on. I think that, again, there's no 100% objective way to make this classification. It doesn't exist in Carlisle. It doesn't exist at the federal level. But using all of these questions helps to narrow that field down, and in the end does narrow that field down. And then just because a house or structure qualifies as historically significant, then does not mean that it would be determined to be preferably preserved. So it could check all of these boxes, and then I think, let me just give you sort of an example. if we all think about that plaza in Acton where the Trader Joe's and the Staples is, if you are pulling out of that plaza, there's a really beautiful historic home there that is now an art gallery, but it has no relevance to the current architecture around it. Its streetscape is no longer there. All of those things. So while that is a historically significant structure, is that something that should be preferably preserved simply because it's a historic structure? I think arguably you could say no because of how it is currently situated in the moment today. And I think that that's why it has to be these various numbers of questions to go through to make that determination, because there's no one thing that can make the determination for a particular structure or building other than the National Register, because that affords it its own set of protections that are outside of anyone's purview in the town.
Do you have any other questions? Was there any specific input you were hoping for?
Really just, we wanted to share some of the updates with everybody so that you were all kind of kept abreast of the development of this as we move it towards a town meeting this fall. So the feedback is all great. The questions are all great. And yeah, I guess ultimately we're hoping to get the planning board support come town meeting. And if there are things that need clarifying, these are the opportunities for us to kind of figure those things out. Our next steps are to continue to do outreach with other boards and commissions, to share exactly the same kind of updates and refinements to the bylaw that we shared with you this evening, and get this out into the public a little bit more, make it a little bit more front facing. And so we're hoping to be at the farmers market this summer and host some other events as we head in towards the fall. Anything else, Chrissy?
No, thank you guys for your time. I know it's super late and you've had a very full docket already, so we appreciate everybody hanging in there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for staying on.
Yeah.
Late for you too. Guys. Any, oh, no, great. All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, so obviously I mean, Dwight, are you open to saving the presentation you were going to be in for next time?
Absolutely. How much did you scramble to get it done for tonight?
Just gives you more time to refine it.
Maybe it's
do we want to quickly do the minutes and invoices and then call it night? Yes. Okay.
So Stacey, I looked. Okay.
So it's I remember what it was, so. Maybe I would be. Waiting for me.
I wish it showed up.
Okay, well, do you want me to just dive in or?
Yeah, you can just, I'm just following up. You know. So, no one else sent me anything, so since you need to share yours out of the way.
Sure. So on page 5, under pending development projects, and then fire station. Yes. The last sentence there, I just was like, did I just remember this differently or wrong? Last sentence reads, staff noted that drilling the well must be completed before site plan review can proceed. And water supply must be confirmed. And that just doesn't track, doesn't make sense. Phil gets the person who needs to do the building permit. So it's not site plan review. No, but building permit can be there. Okay. That would be just so strange. Yeah. Chickens and eggs here. Chickens and eggs. Yeah. That was all I had. Okay, so go back up to the top. Anyone else notice anything? The amendments? Okay, hearing none. Take a motion to approve the minutes as amended. Second. All votes starting with what?
Say.
Brady, aye.
Sure.
Lennon, aye. Okay. Okay. Invoices. We have one invoice, Mitch Woodward Village invoice. This appears to be the asphalt review. Yeah. And it's paid for out of the 53 chief trust section funds. What's the motion? So motion to approve the invoice and authorize the town planner to sign. Take from the Woodward Village Secretary Chief. Roll vote.
Take a sign.
Brady, aye.
Sure.
Lennon, aye. Next meeting, folks, is on August 10th. I think we just need to get very clear about the safety aspects. And I wonder if it's worth having time on the phone. Oh, he was really quiet. We just yeah. I didn't call him on it because he wasn't going to say anything different than what I was saying. But sometimes you got to let people air their grievances. Yeah, yeah. You know, there's well. The other question is that came from the group here was, well, if you're not able to act on this on North Road concerns, we can't. Is it go to the select board or the safety committee? Who will safety committee? Yeah, but it's not acting on those concerns in the context. No, it's their general. Yep. Yeah, concerns. Yeah, they're all. You in the chair. I don't know. So that would be worth sharing next time.
One is the fall town meeting is going to be on Monday, November 16th. So right now, when we all sit here,
it's on my calendar already. Sorry.
I'm not gonna be here.
Okay.
6,
You know,
7, 6.
I'm not sure of the time, but probably 6.
Yes, I'm so late to that. Sit up and I'm like, I'm so done with that. It's like, I get the biggest groan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so great. It's not a new thing.
It's just in there. It's so good luck.
And then the other update is, I don't know if I'm but our health director started March 30th. Have her last day in Carlisle this last Friday. So the health department is in flux. Yeah.
So would you like to explain that?
Just bored. She's building a career, so she'll be
Yep. She had enough to do.
She had nothing to do, sit at the desk. She did not vision that. So she does not read copies. So there's some really, I don't know, these things. She went to really, she was one of the set. It's great.
We really can look at a shared services like we have a channel. Okay, we can read it.
So the way we start unless unlocking from
Right. Yes, of course. Okay. Motion to adjourn?
So, second.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. See you
Hey,
guys.
Joe. Good night.
Night.